The doctor looked at the scans and gave me 60 days. 60 days before the cancer in my pancreas shut down the engine for good. I did not cry. I did not beg. I simply booked a one-way ticket to Atlanta to see my daughter Aaliyah one last time. But when I walked into that intensive care unit, I did not find a woman waiting to say goodbye to her father. I found my little girl in a coma, her face beaten so badly she was unrecognizable while her husband was out live streaming a VIP party. My blood did not just boil, it turned into cold, hard steel. I made one phone call. 1 hour later, his entire world was burning. Before I tell you how I dismantled his life piece by piece, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. If you have ever had to fight for a loved one when the system failed, you hit that like button and subscribe. The taxi tires screeched against the curb outside Grady Memorial Hospital. I stepped out into the humid Atlanta air, clutching my chest as a spasm of pain ripped through my ribs. It felt like a serrated knife twisting inside me, a reminder of the time bomb ticking in my gut. I pulled a handkerchief from the pocket of my worn-out beige coat and coughed into it. When I pulled it away, it was speckled with bright red blood. I stared at it for a second, then crumpled the fabric and tossed it into a trash can near the automatic doors. That was my reality now. Pain and blood. But that did not matter. The only thing that mattered was Aaliyah. I walked through the sliding doors, ignoring the stairs. To the receptionist, to the security guard, to the passing doctors, I was just another old, invisible black man in cheap clothes. I walked with a slight limp, my shoulders hunched. Let them think I am weak. Let them think I am just Jeremiah Moss, a retiree living on Social Security. They did not need to know about the $18 million sitting in my offshore accounts. They did not need to know that I spent 40 years calculating structural loads for bridges and skyscrapers. I know exactly how much pressure it takes to make a foundation crumble, and I was about to apply that pressure. I reached the 4th floor of the ICU. The smell of antiseptic and floor wax filled my nose, triggering memories of my wife's final days. I pushed them down. I found room 402. I stopped at the door, my hand hovering over the handle. I took a breath that rattled in my lungs and I pushed it open. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight. My Aaliyah, my beautiful, vibrant Aaliyah, who had a laugh that could fill a stadium. She was hooked up to a ventilator. Her face was a landscape of violence. Her left eye was swollen shut, the skin turning a sickly shade of purple and black. Her lip was split, but it was the shape of her jaw that made my knees weak. It was misaligned, broken. I stepped closer, my hand trembling as I reached out to touch her uninjured hand. Her fingers were cold. "Excuse me, you cannot be in here." The voice was sharp, dismissive. I turned slowly. A young doctor stood there holding a clipboard. He was tall, blonde, with the kind of arrogant jawline that comes from never being told no. His name tag read Dr. Aris. "I am her father," I said, my voice sounding like gravel grinding together. "Jeremiah Moss." Dr. Aris looked me up and down, his eyes lingering on my frayed cuffs and my old shoes. He smirked, a tiny, fleeting expression of superiority. "Mr. Moss." "Right. Hunter mentioned you might show up. Look, visiting hours are strictly enforced and Aaliyah needs rest." "What happened to her?" I asked, ignoring his attempt to kick me out. The doctor sighed, tapping his pen against the clipboard. "It was a tragic accident. She fell down the stairs at their home. Hunter said she was drinking wine and lost her footing. It happens. Head trauma, 3 broken ribs, fractured jaw. We are monitoring the brain swelling." I looked back at my daughter. "I am a structural engineer. I know physics. I know vectors and impact points. That is not a fall," I said, my voice low. "The bruising on her neck is shaped like fingers. The fracture on her jaw is from a lateral impact like a fist. Gravity does not leave thumbprints on a throat, doctor." Dr. Aris stepped closer, invading my personal space. He lowered his voice, his tone dropping the professional facade. "Listen, old man. The police report says accidental fall. Her husband, Mr. Sterling, says accidental fall. And my medical report says accidental fall. Do not come in here starting trouble with your conspiracy theories. Hunter is a respected man in this city. You are just... well, look at you. Go home. Let us do our jobs." He turned on his heel and walked out, leaving me alone with the hum of the life support machines. My hands clenched into fists. I wanted to follow him. I wanted to show him that this old man still knew how to break a man's arm in 3 places, a skill I learned long before I became an engineer. But I stopped. Violence now would only get me arrested. I needed information. I stayed by Aaliyah's side for another 10 minutes, whispering to her, promising her that I would burn the world down to fix this. When I finally walked out of the room, my heart was heavy, but my mind was sharp. I needed to find Hunter. Mr. Moss. Psst, Mr. Moss. The whisper came from a supply closet alcove near the nurse's station. I paused. A nurse, a black woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a weary face, beckoned me over. Her name tag read Betty. She looked left and right, checking for cameras, checking for Dr. Aris. "Sister Betty," I said, stepping into the shadows with her. "I heard what Dr. Aris told you," she whispered, her voice trembling with anger. "He is lying. They are all lying. Hunter Sterling was here 2 hours ago. He was laughing with the police officers. He gave Dr. Aris tickets to a basketball game. I saw them high-five. I felt a cold chill run through my veins. So the corruption went deep." "And Aaliyah?" I asked. "She did not fall," Betty said firmly. "When we cut her clothes off to get her into the gown, I found this in her jacket pocket. It was hidden in the lining." She pulled a smartphone out of her scrubs pocket. The screen was shattered, spider-webbed with cracks, as if it had been thrown against a wall. "The police didn't log it into evidence," Betty continued. "Hunter told them she lost her phone days ago, but she had it on her. I think she was trying to hide it. I think there is something on here he does not want anyone to see." I took the phone. It felt heavy in my hand, like a grenade waiting to explode. "Thank you, sister," I said. "You have no idea what you have just done." "Go," she urged, pushing me gently toward the elevators. "Before they see you." "Hunter is at the Sapphire Club downtown. I heard him bragging about his victory party." "Go." I walked out of the hospital, the shattered phone in my pocket burning against my leg. I sat on a bench outside under the harsh glare of the streetlights. My hands were shaking, not from the cancer, but from the adrenaline coursing through my system. I pressed the power button. The screen flickered, distorted lines of color shooting across the glass, but it turned on. It was locked. I closed my eyes, thinking back. Aaliyah was sentimental. She always used dates. Her birthday numb. Her anniversary with that monster, I hoped not. I tried my late wife's birthday. Click. The phone unlocked. I ignored the cracked glass cutting into my thumb as I swiped through the apps. Photos, nothing. Messages, deleted. My heart sank. Had he wiped it remotely? Then I saw it, a notification in the status bar. Cloud sync complete. I opened the file manager. There was a hidden folder buried deep in the system directories labeled simply Receipts. My engineer's brain appreciated the organization. My father's heart broke at the necessity of it. I tapped the folder. It required a second password. I typed in the date I adopted her. Open. It wasn't just one file. There were dozens. Audio recordings, PDF documents, and videos. The most recent video was time-stamped yesterday, just 2 hours before she was admitted to the hospital. I pressed play. The video was shaky, clearly filmed from a phone propped up on a shelf hidden behind some books. The angle showed the living room of a lavish house. Hunter Sterling walked into the frame. He looked perfect, suit-tailored hair slicked back, the very image of the modern alpha male influencer. Aaliyah walked in from the kitchen. She looked terrified. "Sign the papers," Aaliyah Hunter said. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "Sign the transfer of the trust fund your mother left you. I need the capital for the crypto investment." "I can't." Hunter Aaliyah's voice was small. "That is for our future children." Daddy said. "Do not talk to me about your ghetto, Daddy," Hunter roared. The calm facade shattered instantly. He grabbed her by the hair. I watched, freezing on that bench, as the man who promised to protect my daughter threw her against the marble fireplace. I watched him kick her while she was down. I watched him lean over her broken body, fix his hair in the mirror, and then pull out his own phone. He started recording a selfie video, pointing the camera at her unconscious body. "See this, guys?" he said to the camera, a sick grin on his face. "This is what happens when a female forgets her place. Discipline is key. Welcome to the master class." The video ended. I sat there for a long time. The night air was warm, but I was freezing. This was not just domestic violence. This was content. He was filming it. He was selling it. I stood up. The pain in my pancreas flared again, sharp and vicious, but I welcomed it. It reminded me that I was on a deadline. I had 60 days to live. But Hunter Sterling. He didn't even have until midnight. I put the phone in my pocket and walked to the curb to hail a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The Sapphire Club," I said. "And step on it. I have a party to crash." The Sapphire Club was a monument to excess and bad taste. Even from the sidewalk, the bass from the speakers vibrated in my chest, rattling the cancer that was eating me alive from the inside out. I adjusted my worn beige coat and stepped toward the velvet rope. My heart was not pounding with fear. It was beating with the steady, cold rhythm of a man on a mission. Inside that building, the man who put my daughter in a coma was drinking champagne and laughing. I walked up to the entrance. A bouncer who looked like he was carved out of granite stepped in my path. He wore a tight black t-shirt and an earpiece, and he looked down at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. "You are lost, Pops," the bouncer said, crossing his massive arms. "The senior center is 3 blocks down. This is a private party. VIPs only. I did not have time for this." I looked him in the eye. "I am here for Hunter Sterling," I said, my voice low and steady. The bouncer laughed, a short bark of a sound. "Yeah, and I am here for the president. Beat it, old man, before you break a hip." He reached out to shove me back. It was a lazy move. He expected me to be frail. He expected me to crumble. But he did not know that before I was an engineer, I served 2 tours in a unit that specialized in silence and violence. He did not know that old muscles still remember how to hurt. As his hand came toward my chest, I stepped inside his guard. I grabbed his wrist with my left hand and pressed my thumb hard into the nerve cluster just below his elbow. At the same time, I stepped on his instep, driving my heel down. He gasped, his knees buckling as his arm went numb. I leaned in close so only he could hear me. "I am walking through that door, son. You can stay standing or you can sleep on the pavement. Choose." His eyes went wide. The arrogance vanished, replaced by the primal fear of a predator who suddenly realizes he is actually the prey. He nodded once, sweat beading on his forehead. I released his arm. He stepped aside, rubbing his elbow, watching me with wary eyes as I pushed through the heavy double doors. The inside of the club was an assault on the senses. Flashing strobe lights cut through the artificial fog. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with sweat and alcohol. The music was deafening, a relentless thumping beat that seemed to mock the quiet suffering of my daughter in her hospital bed. I scanned the room. It did not take long to find him. Hunter Sterling was never one to hide. He was in the center of the raised VIP section, sitting on a gold velvet throne like a king. He was flanked by 2 women with blonde hair and vacant eyes. He held a bottle of champagne in one hand and his phone in the other, attached to a portable ring light. He was live. I walked up the stairs to the VIP section. A waiter tried to stop me, but I walked past him like he was a ghost. I stopped 10 feet away from Hunter. He was talking to his phone. His face animated, his smile bright and fake. "So guys, that is the secret," he was shouting over the music. "You have to establish dominance early. If she acts up, you put her in her place." My wife fell down the stairs because she was clumsy. She was not paying attention. Now she is learning her lesson in the hospital. But the party does not stop for weak females, right? The chat on his screen must have been scrolling fast because he laughed at something he read. "Exactly, bro. No days off. We grind. We celebrate." Then he looked up and saw me. For a second, his smile faltered. He looked confused, like he could not process my presence in his kingdom. He looked at my frayed coat, my scuffed shoes, my gray hair. Then a spark of malicious delight lit up his eyes. He did not cut the camera. He turned it toward me. "Look at this, guys!" Hunter shouted, pointing the camera at my face. "Look who crawled out of the gutter." "It is my father-in-law, Big J. Moss." The women next to him giggled. The people in the VIP section turned to watch, sensing drama. I stood still, my hands loose at my sides. I looked him directly in the eyes. "Hunter," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "We need to talk." Hunter laughed loud and theatrical. He stood up, bringing the camera closer to my face, invading my personal space. I could smell the expensive liquor on his breath. "Talk," he sneered. "You want to talk now? Where were you when Aaliyah was growing up, old man? Oh, that is right. You were working. You were a broke engineer trying to make ends meet. And now you show up here looking like a beggar while I'm spending $5,000 on bottles." He turned back to the camera, his face twisting into a mask of mock sympathy. "See this chat? This is what happens when you have a beta mindset. You end up old broke and begging your successful son-in-law for scraps. This man is from the ghetto. He does not belong here. He is probably here to ask me for money for Aaliyah medical bills because he cannot afford them. I felt a vibration in my pocket. My phone. I knew it was the notifications from his live stream. Thousands of people were watching this. Thousands of strangers were laughing at me, calling me names, believing his lies. I did not blink. I did not look away. I am not here for money, Hunter, I said calmly. He ignored me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick stack of $100 bills. It was a prop. He always carried it for his videos. You want money, Jay? Is that it? You want a handout? Here. He threw the money at me. The bills fluttered through the air, hitting my face, my chest falling to the floor around my cheap shoes. It was a classic move, a display of power, a way to show the world that I was beneath him, that I was dirt. Dance for it, old man. Hunter jeered. Pick it up. Buy yourself a new coat. Maybe buy your daughter some flowers since you could not protect her from her own clumsiness. The crowd in the VIP section roared with laughter. They pointed. They took out their own phones to record the humiliation. I stood in a storm of money and ridicule, a solitary figure in a sea of sharks. I looked down at the money. Ben Franklin stared back at me from the floor. Hunter thought this was power. He thought this was winning. He had no idea that he was throwing paper at a man who had $18 million sitting in a trust fund. He had no idea that the man standing in front of him had designed the foundations of the very building we were standing in. I did not bend down. I did not scramble for the cash. I stepped over the money, crushing a $100 bill under my heel. I walked up to Hunter. He stopped laughing. He took a step back, his instinct warning him that something was wrong, but he kept the camera rolling. He needed the content. I stopped inches from his face. I could see the sweat beading on his upper lip. I could see the dilation of his pupils. I leaned in. I did not shout. I dropped my voice to a whisper, a low rumble that only he could hear. I saw the folder, Hunter. His eyes flickered confusion mixing with arrogance. What folder? He whispered back, trying to maintain his bravado. The hidden one, I said. The one on Aaliyah's phone. The one titled, The Real Discipline. The color drained from his face instantly. It was like watching a light bulb burn out. His skin turned a sickly shade of gray. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The hand holding the phone began to tremble. I know about the videos, I whispered. I know about the customers. I know you are selling footage of you beating my daughter to a private group on Telegram. And I know you charge $5,000 a month for access. Hunter lowered the phone. The live stream was still running, capturing the look of absolute terror on his face, but he had forgotten about his audience. He looked at me, and for the first time he saw me. He did not see a broke old man. He saw the executioner. How he stammered. How do you... I leaned back my face, returning to a mask of indifference. Tuck your shirt in, son, I said loud enough for the people nearby to hear. You look sloppy. I reached out and patted his cheek. It was a gentle tap, but he flinched as if I had burned him. Enjoy your party, Hunter, I said. Drink your champagne. Because tomorrow, the bill comes due. I turned around and walked away. I walked past the stunned women. I walked past the bouncer who stepped aside quickly to let me pass. I walked over the money still scattered on the floor. I did not look back. Behind me, the music seemed to falter. I heard Hunter shouting something incoherent. I heard the sound of the live stream cutting off. I walked out into the cool night air. The pain in my stomach was back sharp and biting, but it felt different now. It was fuel. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I had a text message from Dante, my nephew. I got the IP addresses Uncle Jay, Dante wrote. The list of people watching those videos. You are not going to believe who is on it. Judges, politicians, and a guy named Vinny who runs the loan shark operation in South Atlanta. I smiled a cold, humorless smile. Hunter thought he was a wolf. He thought he was the apex predator. He did not realize that he was just a fat pig who had been rolling in the mud, and I had just invited the butcher to dinner. I hailed a taxi. Where to now, boss? The driver asked. My apartment, I said. I have some reading to do. As the taxi pulled away, I looked back at the Sapphire Club. The lights were still flashing, but the party was over. Hunter just did not know it yet. He was probably scrambling right now, trying to figure out how much I knew, trying to delete files, trying to cover his tracks. Let him run. Let him panic. Fear makes people make mistakes. And Hunter Sterling was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. He was going to try to fight back. The door to my rented apartment clicked shut, and the silence of the room hit me harder than the noise of the club. It was a small one-bedroom unit on the outskirts of Decatur with peeling paint and furniture that smelled of dust and old memories. It was the kind of place a man goes to die when he has nothing left but secrets. I leaned against the doorframe and slid down until I hit the floor. The adrenaline from the confrontation with Hunter was fading, and in its place the cancer woke up. It started as a dull throb in my abdomen like a deep bruise, and then it sharpened into teeth. It felt as if a wild animal was trying to chew its way out of my pancreas. I groaned, clutching my side, my forehead resting against the cool linoleum. My hand went to my pocket where I kept the bottle of prescription painkillers, oxycodone. The doctor said they would make the end bearable. He said they would let me drift away in a haze of warm numbness. I shook 2 pills into my palm. They were small, white, and innocent-looking. I could take them. I could sleep. I could let the pain recede into the background. But I knew the cost. The pills made me fuzzy. They slowed my thoughts. They dulled the edge I needed to survive. If I took them, I might miss a detail. I might hesitate when I needed to strike. Hunter Sterling was not going to be taken down by a man in a drug-induced fog. He needed to be dismantled by a structural engineer with a clear mind and a steady hand. I stood up using the doorknob for leverage. I walked to the bathroom and poured the pills into the toilet. I watched them swirl away in the water. That was it. No crutches. Just me and the pain. I would use the pain. I would let it fuel the fire that was already burning for my daughter. A knock at the door made me jump. 3 sharp raps followed by 2 slow ones. It was the signal. I opened the door. Dante stood there, a black backpack slung over one shoulder, his face illuminated by the glow of the hallway light. My nephew was 24 years old, a genius with a keyboard who spent more time on the dark web than he did in the real world. He looked at me, his eyes scanning my face, noting the sweat and the pallor. "You look like hell," Uncle J. Dante said, stepping inside and locking the door behind him. "I feel like it, young blood," I replied, moving to the small kitchen table. "Did you bring the gear?" Dante dropped the backpack on the table. It landed with a heavy thud. He unzipped it, revealing a laptop that looked more like a military weapon than a computer, along with various cables and hard drives. "I brought everything," he said. "Sister Betty texted me. She said you got the phone." I pulled Aaliyah's shattered phone from my pocket and placed it on the table next to Dante's equipment. It looked small and fragile against the high-tech gear. "It is locked," I said. "But I think the files are backed up to a cloud server." There was a hidden folder. Dante nodded, his fingers already flying across his keyboard. He connected a cable to the phone and a stream of code began to cascade down his screen. "Give me 10 minutes, he muttered. His eyes narrowed in concentration. Hunter thinks he is smart using encryption apps, but he uses the same password for everything. I found his email in a data breach from last year. Let us see if he updated his security. I sat opposite him, my hands gripping the edge of the table to keep them from shaking. The pain was a constant hum now, a background noise to the tension in the room. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to find out exactly what kind of monster had married my daughter. Got him, Dante said softly. He turned the laptop screen toward me. It was not just a folder. It was an archive, a neatly organized library of video files labeled by date and title. The titles made my stomach churn. Lesson 1, Submission. Lesson 2, Financial Control. Lesson 3, Physical Correction. Play the last one, I said, my voice raspy. The one from yesterday. Dante clicked the file. The video player opened. The footage was high definition. Hunter had set up ring lights and a tripod. This was not a spur-of-the-moment recording. This was a production. The camera was focused on the living room of the house I had bought for Aaliyah, though the deed was in her name to keep my wealth hidden. Hunter walked into the frame wearing a pristine white shirt, his sleeves rolled up to show off his forearms. He looked directly into the lens and smiled. "Welcome back, Kings," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Today we are talking about assets. When you marry a female, her assets become your assets. If she resists, she needs to be reminded of the hierarchy." Aaliyah entered the frame. She looked tired, her shoulders slumped. She was holding a stack of papers. "Hunter," she said, her voice trembling. "I read these. This transfers everything. The house, the trust fund my father set up, even my savings. I cannot sign this." Hunter's sigh was theatrical, exaggerated for the camera. "Baby, we talked about this. I need the liquidity for the brand. We are building an empire here. Do you trust me or not? I trust you, she said, but this is all I have. Daddy said Hunter's hand moved so fast it was a blur. The sound of the slap cracked through the laptop speakers like a gunshot. Aaliyah stumbled back, dropping the papers. She brought a hand to her face, shock written all over her features. Do not bring him up, Hunter snarled, moving toward her. That broke. Old man knows nothing about building wealth. He is a loser, Aaliyah, and if you listen to him, you are a loser too. Now pick up the pen. Aaliyah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, Hunter, I will not. Hunter looked at the camera. He winked. Watch closely, gentlemen. This is how you handle defiance. He grabbed her. He did not just hit her. He threw her. He tossed her across the room like she was a rag doll. She hit the edge of the marble fireplace with a sickening thud. The sound of bone hitting stone made Dante flinch. I did not flinch. I froze. I watched as my daughter slid to the floor unconscious. Hunter did not check her pulse. He did not call 911. He walked over to her, stood over her body, and adjusted his hair in the reflection of the mirror above the mantel. Lesson learned, he said to the camera. She will sign when she wakes up, or we will have another lesson. Class dismissed. The video ended. The silence in the apartment was heavy, suffocating. Dante was staring at the screen, his mouth open, his eyes wide with horror. Uncle Jay, he whispered. That is attempted murder. He filmed it. He did not just film it. I said, my voice devoid of emotion. He sold it. Look at the file metadata, Dante. Where did this go? Dante shook his head, snapping out of his shock. He went back to typing his keystrokes harder, more aggressive. He uploaded it to a private server, he said. It is a subscription service, a Telegram group called The Real Discipline, $5,000 a month for access. Get me the subscriber list, I ordered. I want names, I want IP addresses. I want to know who is paying to watch my daughter bleed. Dante worked for another few minutes, sweat beading on his forehead. It is encrypted heavily, he said, but he is lazy. He did not mask the transaction logs. Here. A list appeared on the screen. It was not just random internet trolls. It was a roster of power. I leaned in, squinting at the names. My heart, which had been cold with rage, suddenly stopped. Judge Harrison Dante read out loud. The judge who presides over family court in Fulton County. Councilman Miller. He is running for Congress on a family values platform. Keep scrolling, I said. Dante scrolled. The list went on. Doctors, lawyers, business owners, men who shook hands in church on Sunday and watched women get beaten on Monday. And this one, Dante said, pointing to a user with the handle, The Collector. The IP traces back to a warehouse district in South Atlanta. That is Vinny. Vinny, I repeated the name, tasting like ash. The loan shark. Yeah, Dante said, looking at me with fear in his eyes. Vinny runs the biggest illegal gambling ring in the state. If Hunter owes him money, or if Vinny is watching these videos, Uncle Jay, this is not just a bad husband. This is a network. If we go to the police, half the people on this list could bury the evidence before we even fill out the report. I sat back in my chair. The pain in my stomach flared again, a sharp reminder of my mortality. I looked at the list. Hunter Sterling was not just a domestic abuser. He was the ringleader of a digital circus of sadism, and his audience was filled with men who ran this city, men who could make a 72-year-old black man disappear without a trace. They thought they were untouchable. They thought their money and their positions protected them. They thought Aaliyah was just a prop, a disposable object for their amusement. Dante looked at me. What do we do, Uncle Jay? We cannot fight all these people. They have power. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark street. I touched the cold glass. They have power, Dante, I said softly. But they also have secrets. And structural engineering is all about finding the stress points. Every building, no matter how tall, has a crack in the foundation if you look hard enough. I turned back to him. Hunter owes money to Vinny, I said. That is why he needed Aaliyah to sign over the trust fund. He is desperate. I do not know for sure, Dante said. But it makes sense. It is the weak point, I said. Hunter is squeezed between his debt and his ego. We are going to use that. I walked over to the table and closed the laptop. Copy everything I said. Put it on 3 separate hard drives. One for you, one for me, and one goes in a safety deposit box tomorrow morning." "What are you going to do?" Dante asked, packing up his gear. "I am going to make a phone call," I said. "Not to the police. I need a lawyer. But not just any lawyer. I need a shark." "Felix," Dante asked, a small smile touching his lips. "Felix," I confirmed. "Get some sleep, nephew. Tomorrow we go to war." Dante left, and I was alone again with the silence and the pain. I looked at the spot where the pills had swirled down the drain. I did not regret it. The pain kept me focused. It kept me angry. I picked up my old flip phone and dialed a number from memory. It rang 4 times before a voice answered, groggy and irritated. "It is 3 in the morning. "Who is this?" "It is Big J," I said. The line went silent for a moment, then the voice returned, sharp and awake. "Jeremiah, it has been 5 years. Is the cancer back?" "It never left Felix," I said. "But that is not why I am calling. I need to activate the Sunset Protocol." There was a pause, a long, heavy pause. "You know what that means?" Jeremiah, Felix said, his voice low. "That is the nuclear option. Once we start, there is no going back. It will cost you everything. I have $18 million sitting in accounts I never touched," I said. "And I have 60 days to live. I do not care about the cost. I care about burning a man to the ground." "Who is the target?" Felix asked. "Hunter Sterling," I said, "and everyone who stands with him." "I will see you at my office at 8, Felix said. "Bring the checkbook." I hung up the phone. I walked to the bedroom and pulled a shoebox from under the bed. Inside was an old M1911 pistol from my service days wrapped in an oily cloth. I unwrapped it, checking the slide, checking the magazine. I hoped I would not have to use it, but I was done taking chances. Hunter Sterling had built a castle on a swamp of lies and violence. He thought he was a king. He did not know that the ground beneath him was shifting. He did not know that the old man in the cheap coat was about to bring the whole thing crashing down on his head. I lay down on the bed, the gun on the nightstand, the pain in my gut a steady drumbeat of war. I closed my eyes, but I did not sleep. I waited for the sun to rise. I waited for the hunt to begin. The morning sun did not bring hope, it only brought heat. The humidity in Atlanta rose from the pavement like a ghost wrapping around my lungs and squeezing tight. I had not slept. I had spent the few hours of darkness staring at the ceiling of my cheap apartment, counting the cracks in the plaster and counting the seconds I had left. My daughter was alone in that hospital room. She was defenseless, and the man who put her there was probably sleeping soundly in a bed bought with my money. I adjusted my coat, feeling the weight of the old pistol in my waistband, even though I knew I could not use it. Not yet. I arrived at Grady Memorial at 8 sharp. I walked toward the main entrance, my head down, my eyes focused. I just wanted to sit by her bed. I just wanted to hold her hand and tell her that Daddy was here and that the monsters were going away. But the automatic doors did not open for me. Instead, 2 uniformed security guards stepped out. They were not the tired, overworked guards I had seen yesterday. "These men were big alert and they were looking for me," Mr. Moss, one of them, said. He held up a hand, palm out, like he was stopping traffic. "You need to step back." I stopped. My hands twitched at my sides. "I am going to see my daughter," I said. "Her name is Aaliyah. Room 402. "You are not going anywhere near the 4th floor, the guard said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. He thrust it toward my chest. "You have been served." I took the paper. My hands did not shake. I unfolded it slowly. It was a temporary restraining order signed by a judge less than 4 hours ago. Judge Harrison. The name jumped out at me like a neon sign. It was the same name Dante had found on the subscriber list for Hunter's violent videos. The corruption was not just a stain, it was the whole fabric of the system. The order was clear. I was to stay 500 feet away from Hunter Sterling and Aaliyah Moss Sterling. The reason listed was terrifying in its fabrication. It claimed that I, Jeremiah Moss, had brandished a weapon at a private club and threatened to murder my son-in-law in a drunken rage. It claimed I was mentally unstable and a danger to my comatose daughter. "This is a lie," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "I did not threaten him. I told him the truth." The guard shrugged. "I do not care what you did or did not do. I just follow the orders. And the order says if you take one more step toward this hospital, we call the police." I looked up at the glass windows of the hospital tower. Somewhere up there, Aaliyah was lying broken and alone. Hunter had cut the last lifeline she had. He had isolated her completely. He was not just keeping me out, he was locking himself in with her. He was going to finish what he started, and he was using the law as his shield. I crumbled the paper in my fist. The rage flared in my gut, hot and acidic, mixing with the cancer pain, until I could not tell where the sickness ended and the anger began. I took a step forward. I did not care about the paper. I did not care about the judge. I was a father, and nothing was going to stop me. That was when the sirens chirped. A police cruiser pulled up to the curb, screeching to a halt right behind me. 2 officers stepped out. They were not smiling. Their hands were resting on their holsters, the leather creaking as they moved. One of them was older, with a thick neck and eyes that looked like stones. I recognized him. He was one of the officers who had been laughing with Hunter in the hospital lobby yesterday. "Step away from the door, Mr. Moss," the officer said. His voice was bored, but there was a threat underneath it. I turned to face him. I stood my ground. I am a veteran. I have faced men with rifles who wanted me dead. I was not going to be intimidated by a corrupt cop with a badge he did not deserve. "My daughter is in there," I said. "She is hurt. Her husband did it." The officer laughed. A dry, ugly sound. "We have a report that says she fell down the stairs, and we have a court order that says you are a danger to the family. Now you have 2 choices, old man. You can walk away and go back to whatever hole you crawled out of, or I can put you in cuffs right now for violating a protective order." He stepped closer, invading my space. He smelled of stale coffee and arrogance. "And let me tell you something," the officer whispered so only I could hear. "If you go to county jail, a man your age with your health condition, you probably won't make it through the night. Accidents happen in holding cells all the time, just like they happen on stairs." I froze. It was not fear for my own life. I was already a dead man walking. It was the realization of my own powerlessness. If they arrested me now, I would die in a cell, and Aaliyah would be left alone with Hunter. He would kill her. He would pull the plug or pinch a tube, and she would be gone. I could not save her from a jail cell. I looked at the officer. I looked at the hospital. I looked at the gray sky. I had to lose this battle to win the war. I stepped back. I raised my hands slowly, palms open, showing them I was submitting. "All right," I said. "I am leaving." "Smart choice," the officer sneered. "Get out of here, and do not let me see you around here again." I turned my back on them. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. Every step away from that hospital felt like I was abandoning my little girl. I walked down the sidewalk, the sound of the police radio fading behind me. I walked until my legs burned and my breath came in short gasps. I found a bus stop bench and sat down. I was alone. The law was against me. The police were against me. The doctors were against me. Hunter had built a fortress of lies and influence, and he had locked me out, but he had made one mistake. He assumed I was playing by his rules. He assumed I was a poor, helpless old man who would give up when the system told him no. He did not know that I had spent my life building things that could withstand hurricanes, and he did not know that I had the resources to buy my own army. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my flip phone. I dialed a number I had not called in 10 years. It rang once, twice, then a click. "This is Felix." The voice was sharp, precise, and expensive. Felix was not a strip mall lawyer. He was a shark in a $3,000 suit. He was the kind of man you called when you needed a problem to disappear, not when you needed someone to hold your hand. "Felix it is. Jeremiah," I said. I heard the sound of a chair shifting, the scratch of a pen on paper. "I was wondering when you would call," Felix said. "I saw the restraining order on the docket this morning. Judge Harrison. That is messy, Jeremiah. Harrison plays golf with Hunter Sterling's father. I do not care who he plays golf with," I said, my voice hard. "I want that order gone." Felix sighed. "These things take time, Jeremiah. There are procedures. Hearings. We have to file motions. It could take weeks, especially with Harrison on the bench. I do not have weeks," I snapped. "I do not even have days. My daughter is in that hospital with a man who wants her dead. I need access. Felix, and I need it now." "Listen to me, Jeremiah," Felix said, his tone softening slightly. "I am good, but I am not a magician. The legal system is a machine. You cannot just jam a wrench in it and expect it to do what you want." "I am not asking you to jam a wrench in it," I said. "I am asking you to buy the machine." There was a silence on the line. "What are you talking about?" Felix asked cautiously. I am activating the slush fund, I said. The account in the Caymans. The one we set up after the bridge contract in '98. Jeremiah Felix's voice dropped to a whisper. That account has been dormant for 20 years. There is serious money in there. If you move it, the IRS might flag it. It is risky. I have 60 days to live, Felix, I said. I do not care about the IRS. I do not care about taxes. I care about my daughter. I took a deep breath. The pain in my side was throbbing, but my mind was clear. I am authorizing a transfer of $500,000 cash to your operating account immediately, I said. I want you to hire the best private investigators. I want you to buy leverage. I want you to find whatever dirt exists on Judge Harrison, and I want it on my desk tonight. And I want that restraining order dissolved within 48 hours. 500,000, Felix repeated the number slowly. For a restraining order. No, I said. That is just the down payment. We are going to destroy him, Felix. We are going to take everything he has. His reputation, his money, his freedom. But first I need to get into that room. Can you do it? I could hear the smile in Felix's voice when he answered. It was a cold, predatory smile. For $500,000, Jeremiah, I can get the Pope to sign a permission slip. Good, I said. Get to work. I hung up the phone. I sat on the bench watching the cars rush by. People walked past me, ignoring the old man in the cheap coat. They did not know that I had just declared war. They did not know that the gears were starting to turn. Hunter Sterling thought he had won. He thought a piece of paper and a corrupt cop could stop me. He was about to learn a very expensive lesson. You can buy a judge, you can buy a doctor, but you cannot buy safety from a father who has nothing left to lose. I stood up and hailed a taxi. I needed to go back to my apartment. I needed to meet with Dante. We had work to do. The clock was ticking and I was done playing defense. It was time to go on the attack. The air in the Fulton County Courthouse smelled of floor wax and stale despair. I sat on the hard wooden bench in the back of courtroom 3B, my body slumped over like a bag of old laundry. I did not have to pretend to look sick. The cancer was doing the heavy lifting for me. It was eating at my insides with a ravenous hunger, gnawing at my pancreas and sending sharp electric shocks of pain up my spine. I let it happen. I let my shoulders cave in. I let my hand tremble visibly as I brought a handkerchief to my mouth. The coughing fit started low, a wet rattling sound deep in my chest that echoed off the high ceilings. Heads turned. People looked at me with a mixture of pity and disgust. I hacked and wheezed my body, convulsing until I tasted copper. I pulled the cloth away. It was stained bright red. I made sure to hold it just long enough for Hunter Sterling to see it from the plaintiff table. Hunter sat next to his lawyer, a man with a spray tan and a suit that cost more than my car. Hunter looked bored. He was checking his watch, tapping his foot, scrolling on his phone beneath the table. He looked like a man who had already won. To him, this hearing for the restraining order was just a formality, a paperwork hurdle. He did not see a threat. He saw a dying old man from the hood who did not know when to quit. Judge Harrison entered the room. I recognized him from the list Dante had pulled from the dark web. He was a subscriber to Hunter's violence channel, a man who paid to watch women bleed. He took his seat at the bench, his face impassive, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. There was no sympathy there, only cold calculation. Mr. Sterling's lawyer stood up, buttoning his jacket. Your Honor, we are asking that the temporary restraining order against Mr. Moss be made permanent. As you can see, the defendant is unstable. He threatened my client with a weapon. He has a history of violence. We believe he poses a significant threat to Mr. Sterling and his comatose wife. I did not have a lawyer with me. Felix was busy working the back channels, buying leverage and setting traps. I was alone. I stood up slowly, gripping the bench in front of me for support. My knees shook. Your Honor. I rasped, my voice weak and thready. I just want to see my daughter. She is all I have. I am not long for this world. I coughed again, a violent spasm that forced me to sit back down. I wiped my mouth with the bloody handkerchief. I saw Hunter smirk. He leaned over and whispered something to his lawyer, and they both chuckled. They thought it was pathetic. They thought I was breaking down. Judge Harrison looked over his glasses at me. Mr. Moss, your health condition, while unfortunate, is not relevant to the safety of the petitioner. Mr. Sterling has provided sworn affidavits regarding your threats. Until this court can review the evidence fully, the order stands. We will recess for 30 minutes to review the docket. The gavel banged. It sounded like a coffin lid slamming shut. Hunter stood up, stretching his arms over his head. He high-fived his lawyer. He looked like a man without a care in the world. But I knew better. I knew about the debt. I knew about Vinny the loan shark. I knew that Hunter Sterling was a man standing on a trapdoor with a noose around his neck, and he was running out of money to pay the hangman. I waited until the courtroom cleared out a bit. Hunter was lingering near the water fountain, scrolling through his social media, probably deleting negative comments or checking his follower count. His lawyer had stepped outside to take a call. This was my window. I shuffled toward him, dragging my left leg slightly. I made myself look smaller, harmless, defeated. "Hunter," I said. He spun around, his eyes narrowing. He took a step back, his hand going to his pocket, likely reaching for his phone to record me violating the order. "Back off, old man," he snapped. "You heard the judge. 500 feet. I can have you arrested right now." I raised my hands, palms open. They were shaking. "I know," I said. "You won, Hunter. You beat me. Look at me. I am dying." I let another cough rip through me, doubling over. I saw him flinch, not out of concern, but out of revulsion. He did not want my sickness getting on his Italian suit. "I have 2 months, Hunter," I wheezed, straightening up painfully. "Maybe less." "The doctor said the cancer has spread to the liver." "I am done," Hunter sneered. "So what? You want me to send flowers? Save your sob story for someone who cares, Jay." I reached into the inside pocket of my coat. Hunter tensed, ready to run, but I did not pull out a weapon. I pulled out a folded document. It was thick, official looking, with a blue cover. Felix had prepared it this morning. It was a masterpiece of forgery and legal doublespeak. "It is a life insurance policy," I said, my voice trembling, "from my time in the service. And a private term policy I bought 30 years ago when I started my engineering firm." Hunter's eyes flicked to the document. He tried to look uninterested, but I saw the greed spark in his pupils. It was involuntary, like a shark sensing blood in the water. "What is that to me?" he asked, crossing his arms. I took a step closer, holding the document out but keeping it just out of his reach. "It is worth $500,000, I lied. Cash payout upon death, double indemnity for illness. I am the sole policyholder. Right now, the beneficiary is a charity." I paused, letting the number hang in the air between us. 500,000. I knew he owed Vinny 300,000. This was his lifeline. This was his way out. "I want to make a deal, Hunter," I said. "I change the beneficiary to you. You get the $500,000 when I die, which will be soon, very soon." Hunter laughed, a short disbelief bark. "You are lying. You do not have $500,000. You live in a dump. You wear clothes from the thrift store. I lived cheap so I could leave something for Aaliyah," I said, putting a lifetime of regret into my voice. "I wanted her to be secure, but she might not wake up. And even if she does, you are her husband. You control her finances." I saw the gears turning in his head. He was doing the math. He was thinking about the loan sharks who were probably blowing up his phone right now, threatening to break his legs, or worse. He was thinking about his dwindling bank account, his maxed-out credit cards, his desperate need for liquidity to keep up his fake lifestyle. "Let me see it," he said, reaching for the paper. I pulled it back. "No," I said, firm. "Not until we have a deal." "What is the deal?" he asked, his voice dropping lower, his eyes darting around the hallway to make sure no one was listening. "I want to see her," I said. "I want 15 minutes, just me and her. No guards, no doctors, just a father saying goodbye to his daughter. You drop the restraining order, you put me on the visitor list. I sign this over to you today, and then I go home and die." Hunter stared at me. He was looking for the trick. He was looking for the catch. But all he saw was a dying old man with blood on his chin and desperation in his eyes. He saw a weak man trying to buy a final moment of peace. And Hunter Sterling, like all bullies, despised weakness, but he loved money. He licked his lips. 500,000. Tax-free, I added. He looked at the document again. He looked at me. He smiled, and it was the ugliest thing I had ever seen. It was the smile of a predator who thinks the prey has just walked into its mouth. "You really are pathetic, Jay," he said. "You would pay $500,000 just to hold her hand." "She is my daughter," I whispered. "She is worth more than money." "Not to me, she isn't," he muttered under his breath. Then louder. "All right, deal. But you sign it now. Right here. And if that money doesn't clear when you kick the bucket, I will dig you up and kill you again. I nodded, suppressing the urge to drive my fist into his throat. I have the transfer forms right here, I said, pulling another sheet of paper from the blue folder. I just need a pen. Hunter reached into his jacket and pulled out a gold Mont Blanc pen. He handed it to me with a smirk. Use mine. Try to have some class for once in your life. I took the pen. It was heavy, expensive. I walked over to a small table in the hallway. I laid the document down. It looked so official. The seal at the top, the legal jargon. It was a transfer of beneficiary form for a policy that did not exist. It was a piece of paper worth less than the ink I was about to use. I signed my name, Jeremiah Moss. My hand shook, but the signature was clear. I handed the folder and the pen back to him. There, I said, it is yours. Now call the hospital. Hunter snatched the folder. He flipped through it, his eyes scanning the pages. He did not read the fine print. He did not check the policy number. He just saw the dollar signs. He saw his freedom from Vinny. He saw new cars and parties and power. Done, he said. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Hey, it is Hunter. Yeah, listen. I am dropping the complaint against the old man. Yeah, let him in. 15 minutes. If he stays a second longer, call the cops. Yeah, I know. Just do it. He hung up. He looked at me, stuffing the folder into his briefcase. You got your 15 minutes, old man. Make it count. And, Jay, do us all a favor and die quickly. I have bills to pay. He turned and walked back into the courtroom, his stride bouncing with new confidence. He thought he had just won the lottery. He thought he had stripped me of my last asset. I watched him go. I wiped the blood from my lip with my thumb. I turned and walked toward the exit. The pain in my stomach was still there, a constant fire, but I barely felt it. I felt cold. I felt focused. Hunter thought he had just signed a deal for his future. He did not know he had just signed his own death warrant. By taking that fake policy, he had given me exactly what I needed. He had proven his greed. He had proven that his wife's life meant nothing to him compared to a payout. And now he was going to let the fox into the henhouse. I walked out of the courthouse and into the blinding sun. I hailed a cab. Grady Memorial, I said. I had 15 minutes. It was not a lot of time. But for a man who knows how to destroy things, 15 minutes is an eternity. I was going to see my daughter, and I was going to whisper a promise in her ear that would shake the earth. I checked my pocket. I had the small digital recorder running the whole time. Every word Hunter said, every threat, every admission that he only cared about the money. It was all there. Felix would love this. The taxi merged into traffic. I closed my eyes and let the rhythm of the road settle my nerves. Phase 1 was complete. The bait was taken. Now it was time to set the hook. The digital clock on the dashboard of my rental car read 9 p.m. We were parked 3 houses down from the mansion Hunter Sterling called home. It was a sprawling white monstrosity in Buckhead with manicured hedges and a fountain in the driveway that probably cost more than my entire education. I had paid for this house. Every brick, every beam, every pane of glass. I had bought it for Aaliyah so she would always have a roof over her head. I never imagined I was buying her a prison. Hunter was gone. Felix had set the meeting perfectly. He had called Hunter's lawyer claiming there were some discrepancies with the insurance transfer that needed to be signed in person immediately to avoid a fraud investigation. Hunter, terrified of losing his payday, had sped off 15 minutes ago. That gave us an hour. Maybe less. Ready, young blood? I asked. Dante sat in the passenger seat, his face illuminated by the blue glow of his tablet. He tapped the screen one last time. The alarm is disabled, he said, closing the cover. The cameras are on a loop. We are ghosts, Uncle Jay, but the smart lock on the front door is military grade. It might take me a few minutes to brute force it. I opened the car door and stepped out into the humid night. The pain in my stomach was a dull roar now kept at bay by sheer willpower. I walked up the driveway, my limp more pronounced than usual. I reached the front door before Dante. He was pulling a cable out of his bag, ready to hack the keypad. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a physical key. It was brass, tarnished, and simple. Dante looked at me confused. I built this house, Dante. I whispered, inserting the key into the lock. I designed the security protocols, and I always keep a master key, just in case. The lock clicked. The heavy oak door swung open without a sound. We stepped into the foyer. It smelled of expensive leather and stale cigar smoke. The air was cold, air-conditioned to a meat locker chill. I looked around at the art on the walls, the marble floors, the crystal chandelier. It was all performative. It was a stage set for a man who pretended to be a king. We split up, I said, my voice echoing slightly in the vast space. You find the office. Look for paper trails. I am going to find the studio. Dante nodded and headed up the sweeping staircase. I moved toward the back of the house. I knew the layout. I knew where the structural voids were. When I designed this place, I included a storm shelter in the basement reinforced with steel and concrete. It was meant to keep my daughter safe from tornadoes. I found the door to the basement behind a false panel in the pantry. It was hidden, designed to look like shelving. Hunter had modified it. He had added a keypad. I did not have a code for this one. I looked at the hinges. They were external. Amateur mistake. I went to the garage and found a screwdriver. 2 minutes later, the door was off its frame. I walked down the concrete stairs, the air getting colder and damper with every step. There was a smell down here that I recognized from my time in the service. It was the smell of sweat, fear, and bleach. It was the smell of a place where bad things happened. At the bottom of the stairs was a heavy steel door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. The room was lined with acoustic foam, black and jagged like the inside of a throat. In the center of the room was a chair. It was a heavy wooden chair bolted to the floor. Straps dangled from the arms and legs. Leather straps. Worn leather straps. I stepped inside. My breath caught in my throat. Against the far wall was a rack. It looked like something you would see in a gym, but instead of weights, it held implements. A thick leather belt, a wooden paddle, a coiled whip, and a camera on a tripod positioned perfectly to capture the chair. I walked over to the chair. I touched the leather armrest. It was stained. Dark spots that had soaked into the wood. I scratched at one with my fingernail. It flaked off red and rusty. Blood. My knees gave out. I stumbled, grabbing the back of the chair to stay upright. The world spun. Black spots danced in my vision. The pain in my pancreas exploded, a supernova of agony that bent me double. I gasped for air, but the air in this room felt thick and poisonous. This was where he did it. This was where he brought my little girl. He strapped her into this chair. He set up his camera. And he beat her. He beat her while she screamed into the soundproof foam. He beat her while men like Judge Harrison and Councilman Miller paid $5,000 to watch. I fell to my knees. I retched, dry heaving until my ribs felt like they were cracking. Tears streamed down my face, hot and burning. I had failed her. I had built the walls that held her captive. I had bought the house where she was tortured. Uncle Jay. Dante was at the door. He ran to me, grabbing my arm, trying to hoist me up. Uncle Jay, we have to go. You cannot be down here. I looked at him. My eyes were blurry. He hurt her, Dante. He hurt my baby. I know, Dante said, his voice shaking. I see it. But look. Look what I found. He shoved a book into my hands. It was a black ledger bound in leather. I opened it. It was handwritten. Hunter was arrogant, but he was paranoid enough not to keep everything digital. The pages were filled with columns, dates, names, amounts, payments from subscribers, payments to Vinny the loan shark, and a list titled Leverage. I scanned the names under Leverage. Judge Harrison, photos of hotel room, Councilman Miller, chat logs, Dr. Aris, prescription fraud. Hunter wasn't just selling violence, he was blackmailing his customers. He was recording them, incriminating them, building a safety net of dirt. And this, Dante said, pulling a stack of papers from his pocket. I found these in the safe. Gambling markers. He owes Vinny $300,000. He is 3 months behind. There is a note here. Pay up or we take a finger. I closed the ledger. My strength was returning, fueled by a cold hatred that froze the pain in my gut. We have him, I whispered. We have everything. Suddenly, the sound of gravel crunching on the driveway above us echoed down the stairwell. A car door slammed. Then another. He is back, Dante hissed, his eyes wide. He is early, I said, checking my watch. Felix was supposed to keep him for another hour. Footsteps, heavy footsteps on the floorboards above. Voices, angry voices. We cannot go back up the stairs, Dante said. We are trapped. No, I said. The storm shelter has a secondary exit, an air vent that leads to the garden. It is tight, but we can fit. We moved toward the back of the room, but before we could reach the vent, the heavy steel door at the top of the stairs creaked. Someone was coming down. Hide, I whispered, pushing Dante toward a rack of old costumes Hunter used for his sick plays. I looked around. There was nowhere for me. The room was open. Then I saw a closet in the corner, tall and narrow, probably used for storing camera equipment. I slipped inside, pulling the door shut just as the steel door opened. I left a crack, a sliver of darkness to see through. Two men walked into the room. Hunter was first. He looked disheveled. His tie loosened, his face red. Behind him was a man I did not know. He was short, wide as a refrigerator, with a neck tattoo that crept up to his jawline. He wore a cheap leather jacket and moved with the heavy grace of a man who hurt people for a living. "This is the studio," Hunter said, sweeping his arm around the room. "Top-of-the-line soundproofing, custom lighting. This is where the magic happens." The big man grunted, looking at the chair with disinterested eyes. "Vinny does not care about your magic, Hunter. He cares about his money. 300 large. You are late." I know," Hunter said, his voice rising in pitch. He was scared. I could smell it on him from across the room. "But listen, I just came from my lawyer. The old man, Aaliyah's father, he signed over his life insurance, 500,000. Paper promises," the big man rumbled. "When do we see cash?" "Soon," Hunter said. "But that is not even the big payout. Listen to me. The doctor said her brain activity is fading. I paid him to say that, but it is official now. Next week, I pull the plug." I bit my lips so hard I tasted blood. I watched through the crack as Hunter leaned against the torture chair, the very chair where he had broken my daughter. "Once she is dead," he continued, "I get the trust fund, $2 million, plus the house, plus the insurance from the old man when he kicks the bucket, which should be any day now. I will have the cash, Tony. I swear. Just give me 2 weeks." The man named Tony stepped closer to Hunter. He reached out and grabbed Hunter by the throat, slamming him back against the wall. Hunter gagged his feet, scrabbling on the floor. "Vinny says, 'You have 1 week,' Tony said, his voice calm. 1 week. If we do not have the money by next Friday, we are going to strap you into this chair. And we are going to live stream what happens next. Do you understand?" Hunter nodded furiously, his face turning purple. Tony let him go. Hunter slid to the floor, coughing and gasping. 1 week, Tony repeated. He turned and walked out of the room. Hunter stayed on the floor, rubbing his neck. "I hate you all," he whispered to the empty room. "I am going to win. I always win." He stood up, brushed off his pants, and followed Tony up the stairs. The lights flickered off, plunging the room into darkness. I waited. I counted to 100. Then I pushed the closet door open. Dante emerged from the costume rack, his face pale in the gloom. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "He is going to kill her Uncle Jay. He is going to pull the plug next week." "No," I said, my voice sounding like grinding stones. "He thinks he is. But he just gave us the timeline. And he just gave us the weapon." I held up the black ledger. "We need to get out of here, Dante. We have a meeting to arrange." "With who?" Dante asked. "With Vinny," I said. "If Hunter owes him money, then Vinny owns Hunter. And I am about to make Vinny an offer he cannot refuse." We scrambled through the air vent, crawling on our bellies through the dirt and spiders until we popped out in the azalea bushes in the backyard. We ran through the darkness back to the car. As we drove away, I looked back at the house one last time. It looked peaceful, quiet. But I knew the truth now. It was a tomb, and I was going to make sure Hunter Sterling was the only one buried in it. "Drive, Dante," I said. "We have to find Vinny." "Tonight?" Dante asked. "Tonight," I said. "The clock is ticking, and I am done waiting." The fluorescent lights of the hospital conference room hummed with a low, sickening buzz that seemed to vibrate against my bones. I stood outside the frosted glass door, watching the shadows move inside. My hand rested on the handle, but I did not turn it yet. I needed to hear it. I needed to witness the final betrayal. Inside the room, Hunter Sterling was giving the performance of his life. He sat at the head of the mahogany table, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking with practiced sobs. Across from him sat Dr. Eris and an older man with silver hair and a stethoscope around his neck. That was Dr. Vance, the chief of medicine, the man whose signature cost $50,000 according to Dante's ledger. "It is a tragedy, Mr. Sterling," Dr. Vance said, his voice smooth as oil. "We have run the final EEG tests. There is no brain activity. Aaliyah is gone. Technically, she is brain dead. The machines are the only thing keeping her heart beating." Hunter lifted his head. His eyes were red, but I knew it was from rubbing them, not from crying. "Are you sure, doctor?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Is there no hope?" "I am afraid not," Dr. Vance replied, sliding a stack of paperwork across the table. "We need to discuss the next steps. Prolonging this is only hurting her dignity. And as her husband, you have the right to decide. We can withdraw life support today. And of course, there is the matter of organ donation. It is a noble way to bring something good out of this darkness." Hunter nodded, wiping a non-existent tear from his cheek. "She would want that," he said. "She was always so giving. If she can help someone else, then yes. Let us do it. Pull the plug." I watched him pick up the pen. It was the same gold Mont Blanc he had lent me at the courthouse. He did not hesitate. He did not read the forms. He signed his name with a flourish. With that ink, he was not just ending my daughter's life. He was cashing in her life insurance. He was unlocking the trust fund. He was paying off Vinny. I felt the cancer bite into my side, a sharp reminder that my own time was running out. But Aaliyah, her time was not up. She was not brain dead. She was medicated into a coma by a corrupt doctor on Hunter's payroll. I looked at Felix standing beside me. My lawyer straightened his $3,000 tie and checked his watch. "It is showtime, Jeremiah," he whispered. I pushed the door open. It slammed against the wall with a crack like a gunshot. The three men inside jumped. Hunter spun around in his chair, his eyes widening in shock and then narrowing in fury. Dr. Vance stood up indignantly. "Who the hell are you?" the chief of medicine demanded. "This is a private meeting." "Security." I ignored him. I walked straight toward Hunter. I did not limp. I did not hunch. I walked with the stride of a soldier entering enemy territory. "Put the pen down, Hunter," I said, my voice filling the room. Hunter stood up, knocking his chair over. "You," he spat. "I have a restraining order, old man. You are violating a court order. Dr. Vance, call the police. Get this psycho out of here before he hurts someone." Security guards appeared in the doorway, two beefy men with hands on their tasers. "Grab him!" Hunter screamed, pointing at me. "He is dangerous." The guard stepped forward. I did not move. I stared at Hunter. "You signed the paper," I said. "You signed her death warrant." "She is dead," Jay Hunter yelled, his face turning purple. "The doctor said so. Get out of here. You are just making this harder." Felix stepped in front of me. He moved smoothly like a dancer. He held up a hand, not in surrender, but in a command to halt. "Gentlemen," Felix said, his voice calm but projecting authority. "If you touch my client, you will be named in a federal lawsuit for assault, battery, and civil rights violations by the end of the business day. I am Felix Rothstein, and I suggest you check my win record before you deploy those tasers." The guards froze. They knew the name. Everyone in Atlanta knew the name. Felix Rothstein was the man who sued the police department and won. Twice. Dr. Vance looked from Felix to me to Hunter. He was starting to sweat. "Mr. Rothstein, this is a medical matter," he stammered. "Mrs. Sterling has been declared brain dead. Her husband has made the decision to withdraw support. You have no standing here." Hunter regained his composure. He stepped around the table, smiling that oily smile. "Exactly. I am her husband. I am her next of kin. I make the decisions, not her deadbeat father. Now get out." He reached for the signed papers, trying to hand them to Dr. Vance. "Take these, doctor. Do it. Pull the plug now." "Not so fast," Felix said. He reached into his leather briefcase. The sound of the latches clicking open was loud in the silent room. He pulled out a single document. It was not thick. It was not fancy. It was a simple legal form stamped and notarized. Felix slapped the document onto the table right on top of Hunter's signed death warrant. "Hunter Sterling, you have no authority to make medical decisions for Aaliyah Moss," Sterling Felix declared. Hunter laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "I am her husband. I have all the authority." "Read it," Felix said. Hunter looked down. I saw his eyes scan the header. I saw his lips move as he read the words. Durable medical power of attorney. "What is this?" Hunter whispered. 5 years ago, Felix explained, Aaliyah came to my office. She was buying a house her father paid for. She wanted to make sure that if anything ever happened to her, her father would be the one to make the decisions. Not a husband, not a boyfriend. Her father. "It is a fake," Hunter shouted, grabbing the paper and trying to tear it. "She never told me about this. It is filed with the county clerk," Felix said, snatching the paper back before Hunter could destroy it. "It is irrevocable unless she revokes it herself. And since she is currently in a coma, she cannot revoke it. Which means Jeremiah Moss is her legal proxy." Felix turned to Dr. Vance. And you, doctor, you are about to disconnect a patient without the consent of her legal guardian. In legal terms, we call that murder. In medical terms, I believe you call it malpractice. Dr. Vance turned the color of old milk. He dropped the papers Hunter had signed as if they were burning his hands. I did not know, he stuttered. The husband said, "The records showed—" "You did not check," Felix cut him off. "You took the word of a man with a financial interest in her death over due diligence. We will be discussing that with the medical board, but right now you are going to cancel that order." Hunter looked like a trapped animal. He looked at the doctor, then at me, then at the door. He was doing the math. If Aaliyah did not die, he did not get the money. If he did not get the money, Vinny would kill him. "This is bullshit," Hunter screamed. "She is my wife. You cannot do this. She is brain dead. It does not matter who holds the paper. She is gone." "Is she?" I asked, stepping forward. I looked at Dr. Vance. "I want a second opinion," I said, "from a neurologist who is not on your payroll. And I want a toxicology screen. I want to know exactly what drugs are in her system keeping her in this state." Dr. Vance wiped his forehead with a shaking hand. "Mr. Moss, that is highly irregular." "Do it!" I roared, slamming my fist onto the table. The wood cracked under the impact. Hunter flinched. The security guards took a step back. "Do it, or I will bring the FBI down on this hospital so fast your head will spin," I said, my voice dropping to a growl. "I know about the payments, Vance. I know about the ledger." Hunter's head snapped toward me. He knew. He knew I had been in the basement. He knew I had the book. Dr. Vance looked at Hunter, then at me. He saw the end of his career in my eyes. "I will order the tests," he whispered. We will halt the procedure." "No," Hunter shouted, lunging toward the doctor. "You promised. You said it was done." The security guards moved this time. They grabbed Hunter by the arms, pulling him back. "Get your hands off me!" Hunter yelled, struggling. "I am the victim here." I walked up to him. I stood inches from his face. I could smell the fierce sweat on him. It smelled like vinegar. "You are not a victim, Hunter," I said softly. "You are a bad investment, and your stock just crashed." I turned to the guards. "Remove him," I said. "He is distressing the family." The guards looked at Dr. Vance. The doctor nodded weakly. "Escort Mr. Sterling out," Dr. Vance said. "You cannot do this!" Hunter screamed as they dragged him toward the door. "I will sue. I will own this hospital. Jay, you are dead. You hear me? You are dead." I watched him go. I watched him being hauled away, kicking and screaming like a spoiled child denied a toy. When the door closed, the silence returned. But the buzzing was gone. Dr. Vance looked at me, his hands trembling. "Mr. Moss, I assure you—" "Save it," I said. "I want that second opinion. And I want you to stay away from my daughter. If I see you near her room again, I will finish what I started." I turned to Felix. He was smiling, a small, tight smile. "That went well," he said. "We bought some time," I said. "But Hunter is desperate now. He is cornered." "Cornered animals bite," Felix said. "Let him bite," I said. "I have teeth too." We walked out of the conference room, leaving the doctor alone with his ruined career. I walked down the hallway toward Aaliyah's room. I could breathe again. The weight on my chest had lifted just a fraction. I entered her room. She was still there, still hooked up to the machines, still silent. But the thread of the plug being pulled was gone. For now. I sat down in the chair beside her bed. I took her hand. It was still cold, but it felt different. It felt like there was a pulse, a faint rhythm of life that refused to be extinguished. "I am here, baby girl," I whispered. "Daddy is here, and I am not going anywhere." I checked my watch. It was noon. I had stopped the murder, but I had not stopped the man. Hunter was out there, and he was running out of time. He would strike back. I knew it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Dante. "Uncle Jay, Hunter just posted a video. You need to see this." I opened the link. It was a live stream. Hunter was sitting in his car, his shirt torn, his hair wild. He was crying. "Guys," he sobbed into the camera, "you are not going to believe what just happened. My father-in-law, he is abusive. He has always been abusive. And now he is trying to kill my wife to get her money. He just attacked me at the hospital. I need your help. We need to stop him." I stared at the screen. He was flipping the script. He was using his platform, his army of followers, to paint me as the villain. I put the phone away. Let him talk, I thought. Let him scream. Tonight, I was going to see Vinny. And when I was done with Vinny Hunter, Sterling would not have a voice left to scream with. The cell phone vibrated against my thigh like a trapped insect buzzing with a frantic energy that set my teeth on edge. I pulled it out. It was Dante. The message was short and terrified. "Do not go online, Uncle Jay. Just don't." I sat on the edge of the sagging mattress in my motel room, the springs groaning under my weight. The pain in my pancreas was a dull throb, a constant reminder of the clock ticking down inside me. I ignored Dante. Of course I was going to look. You do not fight a war by closing your eyes when the enemy shoots. I opened the app. Hunter Sterling was not just a man, he was a brand, a digital entity that fed on attention. And he was hungry. The video had been posted 20 minutes ago. It already had 500,000 views. Hunter sat in his home studio, the lighting calibrated to cast shadows that made him look haunted and noble. He wasn't wearing his usual sharp suit. He wore a t-shirt stained with what looked like tears. His eyes were red. "I did not want to tell you this, guys," he whispered to the camera, his voice cracking perfectly. "I wanted to protect her memory. I wanted to protect the family. But after today, after he attacked me at the hospital, I have to speak the truth." He paused, looking down, then looking straight into the lens. Her father, Jeremiah Moss, is a monster. My hand clenched around the phone, the plastic creaking under the pressure of my grip. He abused her. Hunter continued, a single tear tracking down his cheek. Since she was a child. That is why she ran away from home. That is why she was so broken when I met her. I was her protector. I was the one who saved her from him. And now that she is helpless, he is back to finish what he started. He wants her money, yes, but he also wants to silence her. Because if she wakes up, she will tell the world what he did to her. The lie was so audacious, so perfectly crafted in its evil, that it knocked the wind out of me. It was not just a smear, it was a rewriting of history. He was taking the bruises he put on her body and blaming them on me. He was taking the fear in her eyes and aiming it at her father. I scrolled down to the comments. It was a landslide, an avalanche of hatred. Find this old man and end him. Protect Hunter at all costs. I knew there was something wrong with that guy. Look at his eyes. Someone needs to pay a visit to this Jeremiah guy. Hunter had weaponized his army. He wasn't just defending himself. He was painting a target on my back. He knew he couldn't beat me in court with Felix on my side. He knew he couldn't beat me physically. So he was using the one thing he had in abundance. A mob of angry, gullible men who wanted a villain to hate. I watched as the reposts climbed. Other influencers, the ones in his circle who preached dominance and control, were picking it up. They were dissecting my appearance from the hospital security footage Hunter had surely leaked. They analyzed my cheap coat, my limp, my angry face. They called me a predator. They called me a groomer. My blood ran cold, not from fear, but from a deep, freezing rage. This was his play. He was burning the bridge between me and my daughter, using the fire of public outrage to keep me away. If the world believed I was a monster, no judge would grant me custody. No doctor would listen to me. He was isolating Aaliyah in plain sight. I threw the phone onto the bed. It bounced harmlessly. I stood up, pacing the small room. My chest felt tight. I needed air. I needed to move. Staying in this box while he assassinated my character was impossible. The cancer demanded fuel anyway. I needed food. I put on my coat, pulling the collar up and the hat low. I looked in the mirror. The face staring back was tired, lined with pain and age. Was this what a monster looked like? To them, yes. I stepped out into the humid Atlanta night. I decided to walk to a small bodega 3 blocks away. I just needed a loaf of bread and some milk. Simple things. I kept my head down, sticking to the shadows. I thought I was invisible. I thought the city was too big and the night too dark for anyone to notice one old man. I was wrong. I stepped onto the sidewalk under the yellow glare of a street lamp. A car slowed down next to me. The window rolled down. "Hey," a voice shouted. "Hey, you! That is him!" I kept walking, my pace steady, even though my heart hammered against my ribs. "That is the dad," the voice screamed louder now. "That is the abuser!" A glass bottle shattered on the pavement, inches from my feet. Shards of brown glass exploded against my shins. Baby killer, someone else screamed from the other side of the street. Monster. I turned the corner trying to get away from the main road. I ran straight into a wall of noise. Ahead of me, a crowd had gathered outside the hospital gates. There must have been 50 of them. Young men mostly wearing shirts with Hunter's logo on them. They held signs painted in hasty red letters. Justice for Hunter. Save Aaliyah. Lock him up. They were chanting. A low, rhythmic thrum of hate. I tried to slip into the bodega unnoticed. The bell above the door jingled a cheerful sound that felt completely out of place. I grabbed a loaf of bread and a carton of milk from the cooler. My hands were shaking. I just wanted to pay and leave. I just wanted to disappear. I reached the counter. The clerk, a young man with a sparse beard and a phone in his hand, looked up. He was watching a video. I heard Hunter's voice, tinny and small, coming from the speaker. The clerk looked at the screen, then up at me. His eyes went wide. Recognition dawned on his face, followed immediately by disgust. "Get out," he said, his voice flat. I put a $20 bill on the counter. "I just want the bread, son. We do not serve your kind here," he spat. "Get out before I call the guys outside." I looked at him. I could have broken his wrist before he blinked. I could have vaulted the counter. But what was the point? I was the villain now. Violence would only prove them right. I turned to leave. The door opened behind me. I felt a heavy, wet impact on my shoulder, then another on my back. A foul, sulfurous smell filled the air, instantly choking me. I stumbled forward. I reached back and touched my coat. Slime, yellow, sticky slime, eggs, rotten eggs. I turned around. A group of 3 teenagers stood in the doorway holding cartons. They were filming me with their phones, the flashlights blinding in my eyes. They were laughing. "How does it feel, old man?" one of them jeered, throwing another egg. It hit me square in the chest, bursting open. "Does it feel like justice?" "Smile for the camera, predator," another shouted. I stood there dripping with filth. The smell was nauseating, mixing with the bile rising in my throat. I wiped a piece of shell from my cheek. I did not raise my hand. I did not shout back. I stood tall, my spine straightening despite the pain in my gut. I looked at them. I looked past the phones, past the lights, into their eyes. I stared at them with the cold, dead eyes of a man who has walked through jungles and sandstorms, who has buried a wife and now fought for a daughter. I gave them nothing. No fear. No anger. Just silence. They stopped laughing. The boy in the front lowered his phone, slightly unsettled by the statue standing in front of him, covered in yolk but unbroken. "Let's go," the third kid muttered. "This is weird." They backed out of the store. I turned back to the clerk. He was trembling now. I placed the $20 bill on the counter right in a puddle of egg white. "Keep the change," I said, my voice steady. I walked out. I walked through the side streets, avoiding the mob at the hospital. The yolk dripped down my back, soaking into my shirt, burning like acid. I smelled like garbage. I looked like a victim. But inside, the fire was burning hotter than ever. Back in the apartment, I locked the door and engaged the deadbolt. I pulled the shades down tight, plunging the room into darkness. I stripped off the soiled coat and shirt, throwing them into the corner. I stood in the small bathroom, scrubbing the egg from my skin with a rough cloth until I was red and raw. I walked out to the main room. Dante was there. He must have let himself in while I was in the shower. He was pacing the floor, his laptop open on the table, the screen glowing blue in the dark. He saw me, saw the red scrubbed skin, saw the look on my face. "They got you," he whispered. "Uncle Jay, we have to hit back. Let me leak the files. Let me drop the video of him beating her right now. That will shut them up. That will end this." "No," I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "Not yet." "Why?" Dante asked, frustrated. "He is destroying you." "Because if we release the video now, it is just noise in the storm," I said, walking to the table. "They will call it a deep fake. They will say I doctored it with AI. His cult is too riled up. They won't believe their eyes. We need the kill shot to be undeniable. We need him to hang himself." Dante slumped in the chair, defeated. "So we just sit here. We let him win." "He is not winning," I said. "He is celebrating. There is a difference." I reached under the bed and pulled out the shoebox. I placed it on the table next to the laptop. I opened the lid. The M1911 pistol lay there wrapped in oilcloth, heavy and dark. I took it out. I laid it on the table next to a bottle of gun oil and a cleaning rag. I sat down. I began to disassemble the weapon. Slide, spring, barrel. The metal was cool and familiar in my hands. The click and snap of the parts was a language I understood better than hashtags and likes. On the laptop screen, Hunter was live again. I watched him. He was at a bar now, surrounded by sycophants. He was holding a glass of whiskey, toasting the camera. "We got him on the run, boys," Hunter bragged, his face flushed with alcohol and victory. "The old rat is hiding. He knows he can't show his face. We won. This is what strength looks like." I dipped the rag in the oil. I wiped the firing pin, cleaning away microscopic specks of dust. I watched his mouth move. I watched his arrogance swell like a tumor. He thought the noise of the crowd was power. He thought the likes were armor. He did not understand that silence is where the real work happens. He did not know that while he was shouting, I was sharpening the blade. I reassembled the gun. It came together with a sharp metallic clack that echoed in the small room. I racked the slide, checking the action. It was smooth. Deadly. "Laugh loud, son," I whispered to the screen, my eyes fixed on his smiling face. "Laugh while you can, because you are standing on the edge of a cliff and I am the gravity." I checked the time. It was almost midnight. "Pack up, Dante," I said, standing up and tucking the gun into my waistband at the small of my back. "Where are we going?" Dante asked, eyeing the weapon. "Hunter has the internet," I said, putting on a clean shirt. "But Vinny has the streets. And debts in the street are paid in blood, not likes. We are going to make a deal with the devil." Dante closed his laptop. "I hope you know what you're doing, Uncle Jay." I opened the door, looking out into the night. I do not have to know Dante. I just have to be willing to go further than him. And I am. We walked out into the darkness, leaving the glow of Hunter's face behind on the screen, alone in the empty room. The scrapyard sat on the outskirts of Atlanta, a rusted graveyard of metal skeletons under the sickly orange glow of sodium lights. I parked my rental car near the gate, ignoring the no trespassing sign that was riddled with bullet holes. The air smelled of oil rust and ozone. It was a place where things came to disappear, and tonight I was walking right into its mouth. I stepped out of the car, clutching a battered leather briefcase. My chest ached with every breath, the cancer reminding me that my time was short. But I welcomed the pain. It sharpened my focus. I walked toward the main office, a corrugated metal shack in the center of the yard. 2 men stepped out of the shadows. They were young, hard, and holding baseball bats. They did not look like security guards. They looked like problems. "Lost old man," one of them sneered, tapping the bat against his palm. "I am here to see Vinny," I said, my voice steady. "Vinny is busy," the other one said, stepping closer. "And you are trespassing. Turn around before we break your legs." I did not move. I looked at them, my eyes scanning for weakness. The one on the left favored his right leg. An old injury. The one on the right held the bat too low. Amateurs, but dangerous amateurs. "Tell him Big J Moss is here," I said. "Tell him I have something he lost." The first man laughed. "You have a death wish, Grandpa." He swung the bat. It was a warning swing, meant to scare me, meant to make me flinch. I did not flinch. I watched the wood whistle past my face, my eyes unblinking. The man paused, surprised by my lack of reaction. "Go get the boss," I said quietly. "Unless you want to explain to him why you turned away the man who can save his building." The man frowned, confusion clouding his aggression. He looked at his partner, then back at the shack. "Wait here," he growled. "If you move, I crack your skull." He disappeared into the office. A minute later, the door opened again. A man stepped out. He was older than the guards, with slicked back hair and a suit that looked out of place among the twisted metal. This was Vinny, the collector. He looked me up and down, his eyes cold and calculating. "You are the engineer," he said, his voice raspy from years of smoke. "The one who built the bridges." "I am," I said. "What do you want, Jay?" Vinny asked. "It is late, and I do not like visitors. I want to make a deal," I said, lifting the briefcase. "A business transaction." Vinny laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You have nothing I want, old man. You are washed up. Broke. I heard about your daughter. Tough break." "It was not an accident," I said. Vinny shrugged. "Accidents happen, especially to people who owe money." I felt a flash of rage, but I pushed it down. Hunter owed him. That was the leverage. "Let us talk inside," I said. "Just you and me." Vinny looked at his guards, then back at me. He nodded. "Check him for a wire," he ordered. The guards patted me down, rough hands searching for electronics. They found the gun at the small of my back. "He is packing, boss," one of them said, pulling the M1911 out. Vinny took the gun. He racked the slide, ejecting a round, then looked at the weapon with appreciation. "Classic piece," he said. "You got taste. Keep it, boys." He gestured to the door. Come in, Jay. But try anything and you will end up in the compactor with the Buicks. I walked into the shack. It was surprisingly clean inside. A heavy desk, a leather chair, and a wall of monitors showing camera feeds from around the yard. Vinny sat behind the desk, placing my gun on the blotter. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. Talk, he said. I placed the briefcase on the desk. I clicked the latches open. Vinny watched his hand drifting toward the drawer where he likely kept his own weapon. I opened the lid. Inside there was no money, no drugs, just a set of rolled-up blueprints, yellowed with age, and a thick file folder. Vinny frowned. What is this? I pulled out the blueprints and spread them on the desk. This, I said, pointing to the intricate lines and measurements, is the schematic for the Emerald Heights luxury condos you are building on 14th Street. Vinny's eyes narrowed. So, I own the construction company. It is legit. Is it? I asked. I pointed to a section of the foundation plan, these load-bearing columns. They are rated for 40 tons. But the soil report you filed, the fake one, says the ground is stable bedrock. I leaned in close. I know it is not bedrock, Vinny. It is marshland. I did the original survey 20 years ago. If you pour that concrete without deep pile reinforcements, the whole building will sink 3 inches in the first year, and then it will crack, and then it will collapse. Vinny stared at the blueprints. His face was unreadable, but a vein in his temple began to throb. How do you know this? He asked quietly. Because I designed the fix, I said, tapping the folder. When the original developer went bankrupt, I kept the files. I know exactly where the weak points are, and I know you bribed the city inspector to look the other way. Vinny sat back, his chair creaking. You are threatening me, Jay. That is dangerous. I am not threatening you, I said. I am offering you an insurance policy. If that building goes down, you go down. Manslaughter charges, fraud, the whole 9 yards. But if you fix it, you walk away clean. I pushed the folder toward him. Here is the corrected design. The deep pile specs, the load distribution, everything you need to make it stand for 100 years. Vinny looked at the folder, then at me. Why, he asked. Why give me this? You are not a charity. I want something, I said. What? I want Hunter Sterling. Vinny smiled slowly. It was not a nice smile. Ah. The son-in-law. He owes me 300 large. He is a bad gambler, Jay, and a worse liar. I know, I said. I want to buy his debt. Vinny laughed out loud. You want to buy his debt with what? Blueprints. And this, I said, reaching into the briefcase again. I pulled out a bank envelope, thick, heavy. I tossed it onto the blueprints. $200,000, cash. Vinny opened the envelope. He thumbed through the bills, crisp $100 notes. He looked impressed. 200, he said. He owes 3. 200 cash now, I said. Plus the blueprints which save you millions in lawsuits and prison time. That is a good deal, Vinny. Vinny looked at the money. He looked at the blueprints. He looked at me. He was a businessman. A criminal, yes, but a businessman first. He knew value when he saw it. Why do you want his debt? He asked, curiosity overcoming his greed for a moment. Why not just let me break his legs? Because breaking his legs is too easy. I said, my voice cold as the grave. I want to own him. I want to hold the leash. When you own a man's debt, you own his life, and I want Hunter Sterling's life in my hands. Vinny nodded slowly. He understood that. He understood power. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a promissory note. It was signed by Hunter Sterling. It listed the amount, the interest rate, and the collateral. His life, Vinny said, tapping the paper. That is the collateral. If he does not pay, I collect. I picked up the cash envelope and pushed it toward him. He is mine now, I said. Vinny took the money. He counted it quickly, his hands moving with practiced speed. Then he picked up the promissory note and slid it across the desk to me. Done, he said. Hunter Sterling is your problem now. But Jay, if you kill him, make sure you hide the body well. I do not want the heat. I took the note. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket next to the picture of Aaliyah I kept over my heart. I am not going to kill him, Vinny, I said, standing up. I am going to let him live, and he is going to wish he was dead. I closed the briefcase. One more thing, I said. What Vinny asked, putting the cash in his safe. Hunter is holding a charity gala tomorrow night, I said. Televised. Big event. Yeah, I heard Vinny said. He invited me, wanted to show off his fancy friends. I want you there, I said. And I want you to bring your boys, the ones with the bats. Vinny raised an eyebrow. Why? Because when the show starts, I said walking to the door, I want to make sure no one leaves early, especially Hunter. Vinny grinned, a wide predatory grin that showed gold teeth. I love a good party, Jay. We will be there. Front row. I walked out of the shack. The night air felt cleaner now. The weight of the gun was gone, but I carried something heavier. I carried Hunter's fate in my pocket. The guards watched me leave, their expressions wary. They knew something had changed. They knew I walked in a trespasser and walked out a partner. I got back in my car. The pain in my stomach was a screaming agony now, but I ignored it. I had one more stop to make. I had to go back to the apartment. I had to prepare for the gala. Tomorrow night, the whole world was going to see Hunter Sterling for what he really was, and I was going to be the one to pull the curtain back. I started the engine and drove away from the scrapyard, leaving the rust and the ruin behind. I was driving toward the light, but I was bringing the darkness with me. The Peachtree Grand Ballroom was draped in silk and lies. From the mezzanine, I looked down at the sea of Atlanta's elite, swirling in their tuxedos and gowns, unaware they were swimming in a shark tank. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto tables laden with lobster and truffles. A massive banner hung above the stage, emblazoned with the words, "Breaking the Cycle, the Sterling Foundation for Domestic Violence Awareness." The irony was so thick it coated my throat like tar. Hunter Sterling stood at the center of it all. He wore a velvet tuxedo jacket that shimmered under the spotlights. He held a glass of sparkling water, playing the role of the sober, grieving husband to perfection. He was shaking hands with the mayor. He was hugging the police chief. He was smiling that perfect white smile for the news cameras that were broadcasting live to the entire state. I stood in the shadows near the service entrance. I wore my best suit, a charcoal gray bespoke piece I had commissioned in London 20 years ago. It hung a little loose on my frame now, the cancer having whittled me down, but the quality was undeniable. I had shaved, I had polished my shoes, I did not look like the broken old man from the hospital. I looked like Jeremiah Moss, CEO. I checked my phone. Dante was in position in the AV booth, having bypassed the security firewall 10 minutes ago. Vinny and his boys were at tables 6 and 7, looking uncomfortable in rented suits but ready for violence. Felix was near the stage, talking to a federal marshal he knew from law school. The trap was set. I stepped out of the shadows and walked toward the VIP entrance. A security guard, large and imposing, stepped in front of me. He held a clipboard. "Name, sir?" he asked, his eyes scanning my face but finding no recognition. "Jeremiah Moss," I said. "I am the guest of honor." The guard frowned, scanning the list. "I do not see your name, sir. This is a private event." Hunter saw me then. He was in the middle of an interview with a local news anchor, a woman with perfectly coiffed hair and a microphone thrust in his face. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a split second the mask slipped. I saw the fear, I saw the panic, but then he saw the cameras. He saw the crowd, and the mask slammed back into place. He excused himself from the reporter and walked toward me, his stride long and purposeful. He looked like a man coming to greet a friend, but his eyes were cold, dead things. "Jeremiah," he said loudly, his voice carrying over the din of the party. "What a surprise. I did not think you would be well enough to come." He reached me and grabbed my hand in a handshake that was more of a grip of containment. He leaned in close, his smile tight. "What are you doing here, old man?" he hissed. "I told you to stay away. Do you want to go to jail tonight?" I smiled back. It was the smile of a man who knows the punchline to a joke no one else has heard yet. "I came to keep my promise, Hunter," I said loud enough for the reporter nearby to hear. "You said you needed the assets to secure Aaliyah's legacy. I am here to give them to you." Hunter froze. He looked at me, searching for the trap. But greed is a powerful blinder. He remembered the life insurance policy. He remembered the trust fund. He thought I had finally broken. He thought I was here to surrender. "You brought the papers," he whispered, his grip on my hand tightening. I patted the breast pocket of my suit. "Right here," I said, "and the transfer codes for the offshore accounts. $18 million, Hunter. It is all yours." His eyes widened. 18 million. He had not known the exact amount. The number staggered him. It was more money than he had ever imagined. It was enough to pay Vinny 50 times over. It was enough to buy his way into Congress. It was enough to buy freedom. He let go of my hand. He stepped back, his face transforming into a mask of pure benevolence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he shouted, raising his arms to silence the crowd. "Can I have your attention, please?" The room quieted, the music faded, all eyes turned to us, the cameras zoomed in. "We have a very special guest tonight," Hunter announced, his voice thick with emotion. "My father-in-law, Jeremiah Moss. Despite his failing health, he has come here tonight to support our cause, to support his daughter." The crowd applauded, polite, respectful applause. They saw a touching family reunion. They did not see the knife hidden in the bouquet. Hunter put his arm around my shoulders. It felt heavy and suffocating, but I did not flinch. "Come up to the stage, Jeremiah," he said. "Let us show everyone that family stands together." He led me through the crowd. People patted my back. They whispered words of encouragement. "Be strong. God bless you." I nodded, accepting their lies because I knew the truth was coming. We walked up the stairs to the stage. The lights were blinding hot and white. I squinted, looking out at the sea of faces. I saw Vinny at table 6 raising a glass to me. I saw Felix near the front checking his watch. Hunter led me to the podium. He adjusted the microphone. "My wife Aaliyah is fighting for her life," he said, his voice dropping to a somber register, "and her father has been fighting his own battles. But tonight we are united. Jeremiah has decided to make a historic donation to the foundation, a donation that will ensure Aaliyah's dream lives on." He turned to me, his eyes shining with triumph. He extended his hand, inviting me to speak, inviting me to sign my life away. I stepped up to the microphone. I gripped the sides of the podium, my knuckles turning white. The pain in my stomach was a roaring fire, but I used it. I let it burn the fear away. I looked at the camera. The red light was on. We were live. "Thank you, Hunter," I said, my voice raspy but clear. "It is true. I am here to give you something." I reached into my pocket. Hunter watched, his breath held, waiting for the checkbook, waiting for the deed. But I did not pull out a checkbook. I pulled out a small black remote control. Hunter frowned. "What is that?" "This," I said, "is the truth." I pressed the button. Behind us, the massive LED screen that had been displaying the foundation's logo flickered. The image changed. It was not a logo anymore. It was a video. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the air out of the room. On the screen, 50 feet high, was Hunter Sterling, but he was not wearing a tuxedo. He was wearing a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, and he was screaming, "Do not talk to me about your ghetto daddy." The sound of the slap echoed through the ballroom, amplified by the concert-grade speakers. It was a crack like thunder. Hunter spun around. He saw himself on the screen. He saw himself throwing my daughter against the fireplace. He saw himself kicking her. His face went white, white as a sheet, white as bone. I watched the crowd. The applause had died. The smiles had vanished. In their place was horror, pure, unadulterated horror. I leaned into the microphone. "You wanted a donation, Hunter," I said, my voice booming over the sound of the video. "Here it is. This is your legacy." Hunter lunged for me. "Turn it off," he screamed, his voice cracking. "Turn it off!" He reached for the remote. But I was ready. I dropped the remote and stepped back. He scrambled for it on the floor, looking like a desperate animal. But the video kept playing. Dante had locked the system. There was no stopping it. Hunter stood up, his eyes wild. He looked at the crowd. He looked at the cameras. "It is a deep fake," he yelled, pointing at the screen. "It is AI. He made it up." But then the video changed. It showed the list of subscribers. It showed the payments. It showed the chat logs where Hunter bragged about breaking her jaw. And then it showed Judge Harrison's name. It showed Councilman Miller's name. I saw the councilman in the front row stand up and run for the exit. I saw the judge trying to hide his face with a napkin. The room erupted. People were shouting. Some were crying. The reporters were shouting questions, rushing the stage. Hunter looked at me. The arrogance was gone. The confidence was gone. He was just a small, scared man standing in the wreckage of his own life. "You ruined me," he whispered. I walked up to him. I was not the old man anymore. I was the engineer, and I had just detonated the charges. "I did not ruin you, son," I said. "I just turned on the lights." Hunter looked around. He saw the police entering from the back. He saw Vinny standing up, cracking his knuckles. He saw the end. And for the first time in his life, Hunter Sterling knew what it felt like to be powerless. The microphone felt cold and heavy in my hand, like a gavel waiting to deliver a verdict. The heat from the stage lights was oppressive, beating sweat on my forehead that mixed with the cold clamminess of my illness. I could feel the cancer shifting inside me, a jagged stone in my gut, but I pushed it down into the darkness. I stood alone at the podium, the center of the universe, for a few thousand people in the room and millions watching at home. Hunter Sterling stood a few feet away, his chest puffed out, his smile plastered on like a mask. He looked at me with greedy, expectant eyes, waiting for the announcement that would save his life. He was waiting for me to hand over my daughter's inheritance. He was waiting to win. I brought the microphone to my lips. My hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer effort of keeping my body upright. I let a cough escape, a wet, ragged sound that echoed through the silent ballroom, amplified 100 times by the massive speakers. It was the sound of death, and it made the people in the front row flinch. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and looked at Hunter. "You like the spotlight, don't you, son?" I asked, my voice raspy but carrying to the back of the room. "You like being famous. You like teaching men how to be strong, how to be kings." Hunter nodded, playing along, his smile tight. He thought this was part of the speech. He thought I was praising him. "That is right, Jeremiah," he said, leaning toward his own lapel mic. "We are building a legacy here, strength and discipline." I looked out at the sea of faces. I saw the politicians, the donors, the socialites. They were all looking at me, expecting a tearful tribute from a dying father. They were expecting surrender. "You have spent years telling the world who you are," I said. "You have built a brand on your name. Sterling. It sounds valuable, doesn't it? Pure. Untarnished." I turned my body so I was facing him directly. The camera lights flared in my peripheral vision. "But brands are just stories we tell to sell things," I continued. "And you are a hell of a salesman, Hunter. You sold my daughter a dream. You sold these people a vision of charity. And you sold your followers a roadmap to masculinity." Hunter frowned. He sensed the shift in tone. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with static. "Jeremiah, let us get to the donation," he said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a warning whisper. "Wrap it up, old man." I ignored him. I looked into the main camera lens, staring down the barrel of the broadcast. "You want to be famous, Hunter," I said. "You crave it like a drug. Well, I am a generous man. I am going to give you exactly what you want." I paused, letting the silence stretch until it was almost painful. "I am going to make you the most famous man in the world tonight." I reached into my pocket. Hunter flinched, expecting the checkbook. But I kept my hand there, my fingers brushing the small transmitter Dante had given me. "Watch the screen," I said. I pressed the button. Behind us, the massive LED wall that spanned the entire width of the stage flickered. The logo of the Sterling Foundation, the golden shield representing protection and strength, dissolved into static. The room murmured. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd, thinking it was a technical glitch. Then the static cleared. The image that appeared was crisp, high-definition 4K video. It was not a graphic for the charity. It was footage from a basement. The lighting was harsh industrial. The walls were lined with black acoustic foam. The sound hit the audience first. It was a wet, sickening thud followed by a scream that tore through the elegant ballroom like shrapnel. It was Aaliyah, my daughter. On the screen, 50 feet high, Hunter Sterling stood over her. He was not wearing his tuxedo. He was wearing a white undershirt stained with sweat. He held a thick leather belt in his hand, folded over to create a loop. "Please, Hunter." Aaliyah's voice sobbed from the speakers, filling every corner of the room. "Please stop. I will sign it. I promise." The Hunter on the screen laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "It is too late for that, baby. You hesitated. And hesitation requires correction. Look at the camera." On screen, Hunter grabbed Aaliyah by her hair and yanked her face toward the lens. Her lip was split. Her eye was already swelling shut. The crowd in the ballroom gasped, a collective sound of shock that sucked the oxygen out of the air. A woman in the front row dropped her wine glass and it shattered, but no one looked down. They were paralyzed. Hunter on stage froze. He stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on dry land. The color drained from his face, leaving him looking like a wax figure melting under the heat. "This is lesson number 4, the Hunter on the screen said to the camera. "Financial compliance. When you control the assets, you control the relationship. If she tries to hold out on you, break her resolve. Literally." He raised the belt. The sound of the leather striking flesh was loud, sharp, and rhythmic. Snap, scream, snap. Scream. The ballroom erupted. People were standing up, knocking over chairs. Some were covering their mouths. Others were turning away, unable to watch. But the video continued, relentless and brutal. Dante sat in the control booth, his fingers flying across the keys, locking out the venue's technicians, overriding the kill switches. He was making sure no one could turn it off. The video cut to a new clip. This one was even worse. It was the night she ended up in the hospital. Hunter was throwing her against the fireplace. The sound of her ribs cracking was audible, a dry crunch that made my own ribs ache in sympathy. "See that, Kings," Hunter said to the camera, panting with exertion. "That is how you handle disrespect." She thought she could hide her trust fund. Now she is going to spend a week drinking through a straw. Hunter on stage spun around. He looked at the audience. He looked at the cameras, which were still rolling, broadcasting his crimes to the world. "It is a lie," he screamed, his voice cracking high and desperate. "It is a deepfake. It is AI generated. He made it up. That is not me." But then the screen changed again. It showed a split screen. On one side, the video of the beating. On the other side, a scrolling list of chat logs. User Alpha King 99, "Nice hook, bro." She went down hard. User Judge Harrison, "Worth every penny." Sending the crypto now. User Councilman Miller, "Good form. Keep them coming." The names were in bold red letters. I saw Judge Harrison, seated at table 4, turn a sickly shade of green. He tried to stand up to run, but his legs gave out and he collapsed back into his chair, covering his face with a napkin. Councilman Miller was already sprinting for the exit, his aides trailing behind him like rats fleeing a sinking ship. The room was in chaos, shouts of anger, cries of disbelief. The veneer of polite society had been ripped away, exposing the rot underneath. I stood at the podium watching Hunter. He was spinning in circles, looking for an escape, looking for a friend. But there were no friends here, only witnesses. He turned to me. His eyes were wide, wild with panic and rage. He realized in that moment that his life was over. The money was gone. The reputation was ash. The freedom was a memory. "You did this," he shrieked. "You ruined me." He lunged. It was a desperate, animalistic charge. He lowered his shoulder, aiming for my midsection, intending to tackle me, to drive me into the ground, to silence the man who had exposed him. He was younger than me, stronger. He had 40 pounds on me, and he was fueled by the adrenaline of a man facing his own execution, but he was fighting with anger. I was fighting with physics. I did not retreat. I did not try to block him. I waited. I watched his center of gravity shift. I watched his momentum commit to the attack. When he was 2 steps away, I stepped to the left. It was a small movement, efficient and precise. As he rushed past me, I reached out. My left hand grabbed his right lapel. My right hand grabbed his sleeve. I pivoted on my good leg, turning my back to him, pulling him into my hip. It was a classic judo throw. Ippon shoinage. I used his own speed, his own weight against him. I loaded him onto my back and then I bowed. Gravity took over. Hunter's feet left the ground. He flew over my shoulder, his tuxedo tails flapping like the wings of a broken bird. He rotated in the air, his eyes wide with shock, staring up at the lights. He hit the stage floor with a bone-jarring slam. The breath left his body in a whoosh. The microphone stand toppled over with a clang. He lay there gasping, the wind knocked out of him. He tried to scramble up to fight back, but I was already there. I stepped forward. I placed my boot, the heavy, scuffed shoe of a working man, squarely on his chest. I pressed down. Not enough to crush his ribs, but enough to pin him. Enough to keep him down. The room went silent again. The video on the screen had stopped, leaving a freeze frame of Hunter's face mid-scream. The only sound was Hunter's wheezing breath under my foot. I looked down at him. He looked small now, pathetic. The velvet jacket was twisted, the bow tie crooked. He stared up at me with terror. He saw the man he had called weak. He saw the man he had called a loser. I leaned down. I grabbed the lapel mic, pulling it close to my lips. "Is this it, Hunter?" I asked, my voice low and hard, echoing through the hall. "Is this the strength you sell? Is this how you teach men to be kings?" He sputtered, trying to push my foot away, but his hands were weak, shaking. "Get off me," he wheezed. "You beat a woman who loved you," I said. "You beat a woman who trusted you. You beat my daughter, and you did it for an audience." I pressed harder. He groaned. "Well, you have your audience now, son. Look at them." I swept my hand toward the crowd. "They see you. They see the coward inside the suit. They see the little boy who hurts people to feel big." I looked at Vinny at table 6. The loan shark was standing up, clapping slowly. His boys were moving toward the stage not to help Hunter but to ensure the debt was collected. I looked back at Hunter. "You are done," I said. "The show is over." I lifted my foot. I stepped back. Hunter scrambled backward, crab walking away from me until he hit the base of the podium. He pulled himself up using the wood for support, shaking uncontrollably. He looked at the wings of the stage expecting his security team. But his security team was gone. They had seen the video. They had seen the list of names. They knew a sinking ship when they saw one. Instead, he saw Felix walking onto the stage, flanked by 2 federal marshals. "Hunter Sterling," Felix said, his voice cutting through the tension. "You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, racketeering, and interstate distribution of violent content." Hunter looked at the marshals. He looked at me. He looked at the screen where his face was frozen in a rictus of hate. He collapsed. He fell to his knees, sobbing, broken, destroyed. The audience began to boo. A low rumble at first, then a roar. Someone threw a bread roll, then a glass. The facade of the gala dissolved into a riot of righteous anger. I stood still, watching him cry. I felt the pain in my stomach flare hot and sharp, but for the first time in months it felt like victory. The chaos on the stage was a symphony of destruction, and I was the conductor. The booing from the crowd had turned into a physical force, a wall of sound that battered Hunter Sterling where he knelt. He looked around wildly, his eyes darting from the angry faces in the audience to the federal marshals advancing on him. He scrambled to his feet, his tuxedo jacket torn, his hair a mess, the perfect image of a king stripped of his crown. Felix stepped forward, his face a mask of professional indifference. He held up a warrant, the paper crisp and white against the dark chaos of the room. "Hunter Sterling, you are under arrest," Felix announced, his voice cutting through the noise. "The charges are racketeering, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit interstate violence. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." The marshals grabbed Hunter's arms. He flailed, trying to shake them off. The panic had set in, but beneath it was a layer of delusional arrogance that refused to die. He still believed the lie he had told himself for years. He still believed that money made him untouchable. "Get off me!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "Do you know who I am? I am Hunter Sterling. I have millions. I can buy and sell you." He looked at Felix, desperate and sweating. "I will make bail," he shouted. "I will post bond tonight. You cannot keep me in a cage. I have resources. My lawyers will have me out in an hour." I watched him struggle. He was like a fish thrashing on the deck of a boat, unaware that the hook was already deep in his gut. He thought the law was his enemy. He thought the courtroom was the battlefield. He did not realize that the real war was happening outside the legal system. I stepped closer, the pain in my stomach a dull ache now overshadowed by the cold satisfaction of the moment. "You are not making bail, son," I said, my voice low enough that only he and the marshals could hear. "The judge who signed that warrant denied bail. Flight risk, and danger to the community." Hunter sneered at me, spitting on the stage floor near my shoes. "Screw you, old man," he hissed. "I have friends, powerful friends. They will pull strings. I will be out by morning. And when I get out, I am coming for you. I will sue you for everything you do not have." He was still clinging to the illusion. He still thought he had allies. He did not understand that rats abandon a sinking ship and sharks eat the wounded. "Look at the door, Hunter," I said, pointing toward the service exit at the back of the ballroom. Hunter turned his head. Standing there, leaning against the doorframe, was Vinny. He was not alone. He was flanked by 3 of his men, the same men who had guarded the scrapyard. They were not wearing tuxedos. They were wearing cheap suits that bulged around the shoulders and waists. They looked out of place among the chandeliers and silk, but they looked perfectly at home with violence. Vinny caught Hunter's eye. He smiled. It was a slow, terrifying smile that showed his gold teeth. He raised a hand and made a simple gesture. He tapped his wrist where a watch would be. "Time is up." Hunter went pale. The blood drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. He stopped struggling against the marshals. His knees buckled and the officers had to hold him up. "Vinny," he whispered the name, a prayer of terror. I stepped into his line of sight, blocking his view of the exit. I wanted him to look at me. I wanted him to see the architect of his ruin. "He is not here to help you, Hunter," I said. "He is here to collect." Hunter looked at me, confusion warring with fear. "What do you know about Vinny?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I know you owe him $300,000, I said. "I know you are 3 months late." and I know the interest is compounding daily. Hunter swallowed hard. I have the money, he stammered. The insurance policy. You signed it over. I can pay him. I laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound that hurt my chest. That policy was fake, son, I said. It was a prop. Just like your life. There is no $500,000 coming your way. You are broke. Hunter's eyes widened. The realization hit him like a physical blow. No money, no bail, and Vinny waiting in the shadows. He will kill me, Hunter whispered, tears leaking from his eyes. If I go to jail, if I cannot pay. Vinny has guys on the inside. He will have me shanked in the showers. He looked at me pleading now. Jeremiah, please. You have to help me. If you let them take me, Vinny will get to me. He will tear me apart. I leaned in close. I could smell the expensive cologne turning sour on his skin. He won't kill you, Hunter, I said. Not yet. Why? He asked, hope flickering in his eyes. Because you do not owe Vinny anymore, I said. Hunter blinked, confused. What? I bought your debt, I said. The words hung in the air between us. Hunter stared at me, his brain trying to process the impossible. You bought it, he repeated. I reached into the inside pocket of my suit jacket. I pulled out the promissory note Vinny had given me at the scrapyard. It was stained with a little bit of grease from the mechanic's shop. I unfolded it and held it up for him to see. Recognize this signature, I asked. Hunter looked at the paper. He saw his own handwriting. He saw the amount. And he saw the transfer of ownership stamped at the bottom, signed by Vinny. I paid him $200,000 cash, I said. Vinny was happy to take a discount for immediate payment. He does not like chasing bad gamblers. Hunter shook his head. No, he said. That is impossible. You are a broke engineer. You live in a dump. You wear clothes from Goodwill. You do not have $200,000. I folded the note and put it back in my pocket. I own you, Hunter. I said, my voice cold as ice. Every cent you make for the rest of your miserable life belongs to me. You are going to go to prison, and you are going to work in the laundry or the kitchen making 12 cents an hour, and every week you are going to send that check to me. I stepped closer until our foreheads were almost touching. And if you miss a payment, I said, if you try to hide a single dime, I will call Vinny, and I will tell him the deal is off, and then he will come for you. Do you understand? Hunter stared at me. The arrogance was gone. The hope was gone. There was only the crushing weight of a debt he could never repay. You are lying, he whispered, his voice thin and reed-like. You cannot have that kind of money. You are nobody. You are just a ghetto old man. He was trying to rebuild his reality. He was trying to find a crack in the wall I had built around him. He needed me to be weak. He needed me to be poor. Because if I wasn't poor, then everything he believed about himself and me was a lie. I sighed. It was time. I reached into my pocket again. I pulled out my smartphone. It was an older model, scuffed and worn, but it worked. I opened the banking app. I tapped the screen, logging in with my biometric print. The screen loaded. I held it up to his face. Look, I said. Hunter looked. He squinted at the screen, his eyes trying to make sense of the numbers. Account balance, $18,452,000. He blinked. He looked again. He counted the zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18 million, he whispered. I swiped the screen. I opened a document folder. I pulled up a PDF. It was a patent certificate. United States Patent Office. Assignee Jeremiah Moss. Title High Tensile Concrete Reinforcement Matrix. I am not just a broke engineer, Hunter, I said, putting the phone away. I am the man who invented the foundation half of Atlanta is built on. I own the patent on the concrete that holds up the bridges you drive your leased Ferrari over. Hunter looked at me. His mouth hung open. His brain was short-circuiting. But the apartment, he stammered. The clothes. Why? Because I did not need to prove anything to anyone, I said. I lived simple because I wanted to. I saved every dime for Aaliyah, for her future, and you. You beat her because you thought she was hiding pennies when she was sitting on a gold mine she did not even know about. I buttoned my jacket, smoothing the fabric. You called me a loser, Hunter, I said. You called me weak. But tonight, I bought your life with pocket change. Hunter collapsed. His legs gave out completely and he hung limp in the marshal's grip. He was sobbing now, ugly wet sounds that were lost in the noise of the crowd. He was broken, not physically but spiritually. The realization of what he had thrown away, the magnitude of his mistake, crushed him flatter than any physical blow. He looked up at me through his tears. I am sorry, he blubbered. I am so sorry, Jay. Please. It is too late for sorry, son, I said. I nodded to the marshals. Take him away, I said. The marshals hauled him up. They dragged him toward the side exit, past the cameras, past the booing crowd. Hunter looked back at me one last time. He looked small. He looked like a child who had gotten lost in the dark. I watched him go. I watched him disappear into the night, into the back of a squad car, into a cage that would hold him for a very long time. Vinny caught my eye from across the room. He tipped an imaginary hat. He knew the game. He knew I had won. I turned back to the crowd. The cameras were still rolling. The people were still watching, waiting to see what the old millionaire would do next. I walked to the microphone one last time. My daughter is in the hospital. I said, my voice tired but strong. She is going to wake up, and when she does, she is going to need help. Not from him, but from me. I looked at the camera. If you are watching this and you are hurting, I said, if you are trapped, know this, you are not alone, and the monsters, they bleed just like the rest of us. I stepped down from the stage. Felix was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs. He handed me a bottle of water. You okay, Jeremiah? He asked. I took a sip. The water was cool and clean. I am tired, Felix, I said. We should get you to a doctor, he said, looking at my pale face. No, I said. Take me to Aaliyah. I have a trust fund to set up. And I have a goodbye to say. We walked out of the ballroom, leaving the wreckage of Hunter Sterling's life behind us. The air outside was cool. The stars were hidden by the city lights, but I knew they were there. I had 60 days left, maybe less now. The stress had taken its toll. But it did not matter. I had finished the job. The foundation was secure, the load was balanced, and my daughter was safe. The cell door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through the concrete block of the Fulton County Jail. Hunter Sterling sat on the thin mattress, his designer suit now replaced by a coarse orange jumpsuit that smelled of bleach and sweat. He was in administrative segregation for now, but the word had already spread. The guards whispered it. The trustees passing out meal trays muttered it. He is the one who beats women. He is the one who sells the videos. Hunter curled into a ball facing the wall, trying to shut out the noise of the cell block. He was still waiting for his lawyer. He was still waiting for the bail hearing that would never come. Judge Harrison had recused himself immediately after the gala scandal broke, scrambling to save his own career. And the new judge, Judge Patterson, was a woman with a zero-tolerance record for domestic violence. She had denied bail, citing the immense flight risk and the danger he posed to the public. But the real danger was inside. That night, the lights dimmed. Hunter lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He heard footsteps approach his cell. They were heavy, deliberate steps. A shadow fell across the bars. Hunter sat up, his heart pounding. "Who is there?" he whispered. A guard stood there. He was not looking at Hunter. He was looking at his keys. He selected one and unlocked the cell door. "You got visitors," the guard said, his voice flat. He pushed the door open. 2 inmates stepped inside. They were not wearing orange. They were wearing the dark blue uniforms of the general population kitchen crew. One of them was small, wiry, with scars on his knuckles. The other was massive, a wall of muscle with a teardrop tattoo under his eye. "Vinny sends his regards," the small one said. Hunter scrambled back until his spine hit the cold cinder block wall. "No," he pleaded, his voice high and thin. "No, please. I will pay. I have money." "You have nothing," the big man said, closing the cell door behind him. "The old man bought your debt, and the old man says you need a lesson in humility. They did not kill him. Killing him would be too easy. It would be a release. They beat him. They beat him with the precision of professionals. They targeted his ribs, his legs, his face. They broke him down methodically, leaving him gasping and broken on the floor. When they were done, the small man leaned over him. "This is for the girl," he whispered, "and for every other woman you hurt." They left, locking the door behind them. The guard did not look back. Hunter lay there in the dark, bleeding alone. He realized then that his influence, his followers, his brand meant nothing in here. He was not a king, he was meat, and he was going to be meat for a very long time. 2 weeks later, the sunlight filtered through the blinds of room 402 at Grady Memorial. It was softer now, less harsh than the day I arrived. I sat in the chair by the bed, my body feeling lighter, as if the burden of the war had finally lifted, leaving only the quiet acceptance of the end. Aaliyah stirred. Her eyelids fluttered. I leaned forward, taking her hand. "Baby girl," I whispered. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened. They were hazy, unfocused at first, but then they found me. She blinked. A tear rolled down her cheek. "Daddy," she rasped, her voice weak from disuse. "I am here," I said, squeezing her hand. "I am right here." She looked around the room. She saw the machines. She felt the bandages on her face. The memory of the attack came flooding back, and I saw the panic rise in her eyes. "Hunter," she whispered, terrified. "Where is he?" "He is gone," I said, my voice firm. "He is in jail, Aaliyah. He is never going to hurt you again." She looked at me, searching my face for the truth. She saw the tiredness in my eyes, the gray in my skin. "You look sick, Daddy," she said, her concern shifting from herself to me. I smiled, a sad, tired smile. "I have to tell you something, baby girl," I said. I told her everything. I told her about the cancer. I told her about the 2 months that were now down to weeks. I told her about the fight, the gala, the video. I told her about the $18 million. She listened, silent, tears streaming down her face. She did not care about the money. She cared that I was leaving her. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, sobbing. "Why did you fight him alone?" "Because that is what fathers do," I said, wiping her tears with my thumb. "We build the foundation so you can stand on it." I pulled a thick envelope from my jacket pocket. "This is for you," I said, placing it in her hand. "It is a trust fund." Felix set it up. "It is ironclad. No husband, no boyfriend, no man can ever touch a cent of it. It is yours, Aaliyah. Use it to heal. Use it to build a life where you never have to be afraid again." She clutched the envelope to her chest. "I don't want the money," she cried. "I want you. You have me," I said, pointing to her heart. "I am right here. Always." A month later, the park was bathed in the golden light of autumn. The leaves were turning the trees into pillars of fire and gold. I sat on a bench, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The pain was gone now, replaced by a strange numbness, a drift toward the horizon. Aaliyah sat next to me in a wheelchair. Her bruises were fading, turning yellow and green. Her jaw was wired shut, but her eyes were bright. She was healing. We watched the children playing near the fountain. We watched the couples walking hand in hand. "It is a good world, Aaliyah," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "If you fight for it." She took my hand. Her grip was strong. "I will fight Daddy," she said. "I promise." I looked at her. I saw my wife in her face. I saw the strength of the women who came before her. I saw a survivor. I closed my eyes. The sun felt warm on my face. The sounds of the park faded into a gentle hum. I was tired. So tired. But it was a good tired. The kind of tired that comes after a long day of hard work. The kind of tired that comes after building something that will last. I took one last breath, filling my lungs with the scent of pine and earth. "Good night, baby girl," I thought. And then the screen went dark. The most dangerous mistake a predator can make is assuming their prey is helpless. Hunter Sterling believed that appearances defined reality, mistaking Jeremiah's silence for weakness and his modesty for poverty. But true power does not need to broadcast itself on a screen. It waits, it prepares, and it strikes with precision. This story reminds us that dignity often wears a worn-out coat, and that a father's love is a force of nature capable of toppling empires to protect a child. It teaches us that while lies may sprint, the truth runs a marathon, and eventually the bill for cruelty always comes due. If this story of justice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments, would you have gone as far as Jeremiah did to save your family?